I was 52 years old the day I watched a man die because I could not move. The steel beam weighed 900 pounds. It fell from the fourth floor of the commercial building we were constructing in Colorado Springs, and I saw it happening. I saw Kevin Brandt standing directly beneath it, adjusting his hard hat, completely unaware. I opened my mouth to scream a warning. Nothing came out. My body froze, my lungs locked. My brain went somewhere else, somewhere hot and sandy and full of screaming. And by the time I came back to Colorado, to the construction site, to reality, Kevin was on the ground and he was not moving, and there was blood spreading across the concrete in a pattern that looked exactly like the blood that spread across Afghan sand when Rodriguez died in my arms 18 years ago. I stood there. I just stood there. People ran past me. Someone was shouting into a radio. Someone else was doing chest compressions on Kevin, but I could tell from the angle of his neck that it did not matter. I had seen enough death to recognize it. The foreman, a man named Dawson who had worked construction for 30 years, grabbed my shoulder and spun me around. His face was red. His eyes were searching mine for something. "Marcus," he said. "Marcus, did you see it fall?" I nodded. "Did you try to warn him?" I opened my mouth. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say I had done everything I could. But the truth was simpler and more terrible. I froze, I said. Dawson's expression changed. He looked at me the way you look at a piece of equipment that has failed at a critical moment. Like something that used to be useful but is now just liability. "Go home," he said. "We'll call you." I knew what that meant. Kevin Brandt was 27 years old. He had 2 daughters, ages 4 and 6. His wife was pregnant with their 3rd child. I learned these details later, from the accident report, from the newspaper article, from the OSHA investigation that cleared me of criminal negligence but confirmed what Dawson already knew. I was not fit for the job anymore. The official termination came 3 days later. Inability to respond under pressure during a safety-critical incident. They tested my blood and found nothing. I was sober. I had been sober for 2 years. But sobriety does not fix what war does to your brain. It does not stop the flashbacks. It does not prevent your body from betraying you at the exact moment someone needs you most. I went home to my studio apartment, 500 square feet, kitchenette on one wall, bed against another, bathroom so small you could touch both walls while sitting on the toilet. I had lived there 18 months, ever since Sarah signed the divorce papers, and I moved out of the house we had shared for 23 years. The apartment was clean. I kept it that way. Military habit. But it was also empty. No pictures on the walls, no books on the shelf, nothing that suggested a person actually lived there instead of just existing between shifts. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at my phone. 37 missed calls over 3 days. 19 from numbers I did not recognize. Probably reporters, lawyers, people who wanted to know if I felt guilty about Kevin Brandt. I did feel guilty. I felt guilty every day. But I had stopped talking about it because talking did not change anything. 3 calls from Sarah, my ex-wife, probably calling about child support. I was 2 months behind. Without the construction job, I had no way to catch up. She would take me back to court. The judge would look at me with the same expression Dawson had. Disappointment, liability. 6 calls from a number I did not recognize. Montana area code 406. I did not know anyone in Montana. I deleted the voicemails without listening. Then I lay down on his bed, fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling until the light outside changed from gray to dark. That was my life. That was what 52 years had built. A studio apartment I could not afford, an ex-wife who hated me, a daughter who would not speak to me, and a bank account with $1,340 in it. The money would last maybe 6 weeks if I was careful. Then I would be homeless. The thought did not scare me as much as it should have. I had been to worse places. The next morning, my phone rang again. Same Montana number. I answered this time because I had nothing better to do. "Mr. Webb?" The voice was male, older, professional. "This is Nathan Pierce. I'm an attorney calling from Missoula, Montana. I've been trying to reach you for several days." "I'm not interested in whatever you're selling," I said. "I'm not selling anything, Mr. Webb. I'm calling about your grandmother, Grace Webb. She passed away on March 11th. I'm the executor of her estate." I sat up. "I don't have a grandmother," I said. There was a pause on the other end, papers rustling. "Grace Ellen Webb," the lawyer said. "Born 1938 in Bozeman, Montana. Married William Webb in 1960. Your mother is Margaret Webb Mitchell, correct?" "My mother is Margaret Mitchell," I said slowly. "But she never mentioned a Grace Webb." Well, Nathan Pierce said, and something in his tone suggested he was not entirely surprised. Grace mentioned you. Quite a lot, actually. She left you her property. 80 acres in Willow Creek, Montana. I need you to come to my office to sign the paperwork. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot of my apartment complex. Why would she leave me property? I asked. I never met her. That, Nathan Pierce said, is a good question. One I think you should come to Montana to answer. Can you be here by the end of the week? I thought about my studio apartment, my empty bank account, my complete lack of anywhere else to be. I can be there tomorrow, I said. After I hung up, I called my mother. Margaret Mitchell lived in Phoenix with her third husband, a retired insurance salesman named Doug. I had met Doug twice. Both times he had treated me with the careful politeness you use with strangers who might be dangerous. My mother had probably told him about the PTSD, about the drinking years, about the time I showed up at her house at 2 in the morning, drunk and crying, begging her to explain why she never loved me the way other mothers loved their sons. She had closed the door in my face that night. Doug had called the police. I did not blame them. The phone rang 4 times before she answered. Marcus, her voice was flat, not surprised, not pleased, just acknowledging that I existed. Mom, I said, I got a call from a lawyer in Montana. He says my grandmother died, Grace Webb. Silence. Then I see. You never told me I had a grandmother, I said. She wasn't part of our lives. He says she left me 80 acres of land. More silence. I could hear a television in the background, voices from a cooking show. That land is worthless, my mother said finally. The house burned down 15 years ago. Nothing there but dirt and a falling down barn. You should sell it immediately. Take whatever money you can get. Why didn't you ever tell me about her? Because she was not someone worth knowing. Mom, I said, and I heard my own voice getting tight. She was your mother. She was my grandmother. Why would you keep that from me? She made her choices, Margaret said. She chose that farm over her family. She chose isolation over her own daughter. When your grandfather died, she sent me away to live with my aunt. I was 12 years old, Marcus. 12. She did not want me, so I made sure you never had to know her either. That doesn't make sense, I said. If she didn't want you, why would she leave me her land? Because she was crazy, my mother said. Her voice was rising now. She lived alone on that farm for 40 years, talking to herself, writing letters to people who didn't exist. The lawyer is probably taking advantage of you. Sell the land, take the money, don't go out there. I'm going, I said. Then you're a fool, she said and hung up. I stood there holding the phone, listening to the dial tone, thinking about 12-year-old Margaret being sent away by her mother, thinking about whether my mother had kept Grace from me to protect me or to punish Grace, or because she genuinely believed some wounds were too deep to heal. It did not matter. I had nowhere else to go. I threw everything I owned into 2 duffel bags: clothes, toiletries, laptop, chargers, a framed photo of Emily, my daughter, taken at her law school graduation 3 years ago. She was smiling in the photo. I was standing next to her, trying to smile, looking like I did not quite belong there. I had not spoken to Emily in 14 months. The last time was at her 23rd birthday party. I showed up sober. I stayed sober all night. But at some point, someone asked me about Afghanistan, and I made the mistake of answering honestly. And before I knew it, I was shouting about Rodriguez and about the boys we left behind and about how none of it meant anything. And Emily was crying and her boyfriend was asking me to leave. And I was in my truck, driving home with no memory of how I got there. She had not answered my call since. I put the photo in my duffel bag anyway. Then I loaded everything into my truck, a Ford F-150 with 180,000 miles on it, and I started driving north. Colorado Springs to Missoula, Montana is about 14 hours if you drive straight through. I drove straight through. I left at 6 in the morning and watched the landscape change outside my window. Denver fell away behind me. The front range of the Rockies rose to my left, white peaks against blue sky. Wyoming opened up, all grass and wind and emptiness. I stopped once for gas and coffee. The gas station was in the middle of nowhere. Flat land in every direction. A single employee inside, a kid maybe 20 years old, who looked at me like I was the first person he had seen in days. I paid in cash, counted out the bills carefully. I had $800 left after rent and gas. That was all. When it was gone, I would have nothing. The kid gave me my change and said, "Have a good one." I nodded and walked back to my truck. Montana appeared gradually. First, the land got rougher. Hills turned into mountains. Pine forest thickened. The sky seemed bigger somehow, like there was more of it than in other places. I had been to mountains before. Afghanistan is full of mountains. But these were different. Greener, wetter, alive in a way that desert mountains are not. Missoula appeared just after dark, a small city tucked into a valley surrounded by peaks. I found Nathan Pierce's office on Main Street, a two-story brick building with a sign that read Pierce and Associates, attorneys at law. I parked on the street, sat in my truck for a moment. My back ached from 14 hours of driving. My hands were stiff on the steering wheel. I did not know what I was doing here, but I got out anyway. Nathan Pierce was maybe 58, with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. His office was small, wooden desk, file cabinets, framed diplomas on the wall. He shook my hand and gestured to a chair. "Mr. Webb," he said, "thank you for coming so quickly." "Call me Marcus," I said. "Marcus, can I get you coffee? Water?" "I'm fine." He sat down behind his desk, opened a file folder, looked at me for a long moment. "Grace talked about you," he said, "often. I never met her." "I know. She knew that too. But she talked about you anyway. Your birthday, your military service, your daughter. She kept track as best she could." "How?" I asked. "My mother said Grace was out of her life for 40 years. Nathan nodded slowly. "That's true. Margaret cut off contact when she was a teenager. But Grace never stopped trying to reach you." He pulled something from a drawer, a Nike shoebox. Old, the kind from the 90s. He set it on the desk between us. "I want you to look at this," he said. I opened the box. Inside were letters, dozens of them, maybe more than 100, all in white envelopes, all addressed to Marcus Webb at different addresses. Seattle when I was young, Colorado Springs after I joined the military. Every single envelope had a red stamp on it. "Return to sender. Addressee unknown." I picked one up. The handwriting was neat, feminine, slightly slanted. The return address said Grace Webb, Rural Route 7, Willow Creek, Montana. The postmark was from 1990, my 18th birthday. I opened it with shaking hands. The letter inside was written on lined paper. "Marcus, my dear boy," it began. "Today you turn 18. I don't know where you are, but I believe you are healthy and strong. I heard through a friend that you joined the Marines. I am so proud of you. I am also terrified. Please be safe. Please come home. Your grandmother loves you. Grace Webb, September 15th, 1990. I set it down, picked up another envelope. This one from 2008. I would have been in Afghanistan. "Marcus, I don't know if you are overseas. I pray every night for your safety. I pray you come home. The farm is doing well. The apples are ready for harvest. I wish you could see them. Love, Grace." Another envelope. 2015, my divorce year. "Marcus, I don't know if you are married or have children. I don't know if you are happy, but I want you to know that you deserve love. You deserve peace. Your grandmother is thinking of you. Always, Grace." I set that one down too. Looked up at Nathan Pierce. "How many are there?" I asked. My voice did not sound like mine. 180 in this box, Nathan said. "Grace sent you a letter every month for your entire life. Your mother returned every single one. Grace kept them all." I could not speak. Nathan continued. "Before Grace died, she came to this office. She was very weak. Pancreatic cancer. She had maybe 2 weeks left. She brought this box and asked me to give it to you. She said, and I quote, 'Marcus will come when he needs to. When he does, give him these letters. He needs to know someone loved him.'" Something broke inside my chest. I could feel it crack like ice. "She left you 80 acres, Nathan said. Free and clear, no mortgage, taxes paid through this year. The house burned down in 2009, but the barn is still standing. There's a well, creek water. The land itself is good. She wanted you to have it." "Why?" I asked. "Why me? I never even spoke to her." "I asked her that," Nathan said. "She told me because blood is blood and love does not need permission." He slid a document across the desk. "This is the deed. Sign here and it's yours." I looked at the paper, at the official language, at Grace Ellen Webb's name typed in black ink. I signed. Nathan notarized it, filed the paperwork, shook my hand again. "The property is 18 miles outside town," he said. "I can draw you a map." "I'd appreciate that." He sketched directions on the back of an envelope. Roads that turned to dirt. Landmarks that were trees and fences. "It's remote," he said. "No neighbors for miles. Cell service is spotty. Town is Willow Creek. Population 680. There's a diner, a general store, a post office. People there knew Grace. They'll help you if you need it. Okay, I said. Marcus, Nathan said, and his voice was gentle. Grace was a good woman. What happened between her and your mother? I don't know the whole story, but I knew Grace for 20 years. She was not crazy. She was not cruel. She was lonely. And she hoped every single day that you would come. I nodded because I could not speak. I left the office, sat in my truck, put my head on the steering wheel. 18 years old when the first letter was sent. 52 when I finally received them. 34 years of letters. 34 years of love returned unopened. I wanted to call my mother. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to ask why. Why would you do this? Why would you keep this from me? But I already knew. Because she was hurt. Because she was angry. Because sometimes people pass their pain down like inheritance, and you do not realize what you have received until it is too late. I drove out of Missoula as the last light faded from the sky. Nathan's map was simple, Highway 93 north for 30 miles. Right at the wooden bridge, left at the dead pine tree, 4 more miles on dirt road. Look for a gate that says Webb. The dead pine tree was easy to spot. A massive trunk, white and skeletal, struck by lightning years ago. The dirt road beyond it was rutted and overgrown. My truck bounced over rocks and through puddles. Branches scraped the sides. 4 miles felt like 40. Then the road opened into a clearing, and I saw it. The farm. I stopped the truck, turned off the engine, sat there in the silence. Moonlight lit the scene like a photograph. Where the house should have been, there was only a foundation. Concrete rectangle, maybe 40 by 30 feet. Blackened, cracked, covered in moss and weeds. Charred beams stuck up from the ground like broken ribs. Behind the foundation stood the barn. Red paint faded to rust, roof sagging, walls leaning, but standing, 60 feet long, 40 feet wide. A massive sliding door hanging crooked on its track. Beyond the barn, fields stretched into darkness. I could see the shapes of trees, overgrown rows that might have been a garden once, fences falling down. To the left, a stone well with a hand pump. The pump handle hung at an angle, rusted solid. To the right, I could hear water, a creek running somewhere in the dark. And above it all, the Montana sky. I got out of the truck. The silence was absolute. No cars, no voices, no hum of electricity or distant sirens, or any of the thousand sounds that fill a city night. Just whine through grass, water over stones, an owl calling from somewhere far away. I walked to the foundation, stood where the front door would have been, tried to imagine Grace living here, waking up every morning in this house, looking out at these fields, growing old alone. My boot knocked against something. I looked down. A piece of door frame, still attached to a hinge. The wood was charred, but I could see carving in it. Initials. W plus GH 1960. William Webb and Grace, I assumed. My grandparents. On their wedding day or soon after. I picked up the piece of wood, held it, put it in my truck. Then I walked to the barn. The door was stuck. I put my shoulder into it and shoved. It scraped open a few feet, enough to slip inside. Darkness. The smell of old hay and animal droppings and wood rot. I turned on my phone flashlight. The barn was bigger inside than it looked. Stalls along both walls. A hayloft above. Old tools hanging on nails. A tractor in the corner. So rusted it looked like it might crumble if you touched it. Mice scattered from the light. Birds roosted in the rafters. But the structure was solid. The main beams were thick. The floor was dirt but level. The loft ladder looked sketchy but intact. I climbed carefully. The loft was maybe 20 by 30 feet. Wooden floorboards. Small windows on both ends. Glass broken out. Old blankets piled in a corner. Eaten through by rodents. But it was dry. The roof above this section had held. I stood in the center of the loft and turned in a slow circle. This was mine. 80 acres of Montana. A burned foundation. A falling down barn. $540 in my pocket. I laughed. I could not help it. The sound came out harsh and bitter. I had come to the end of everything. Lost my job, lost my family, lost any sense that I had value or purpose or reason to keep going. And I had landed here, in the middle of nowhere, in the ruins of a life I never knew existed. I pulled out my phone. No service. Of course. I went back down the ladder, out to my truck, grabbed my duffel bags, brought them up to the loft. Then I went back down and started looking through the barn. In the back corner, Under a tarp gray with dust, I found a stack of wooden crates. I pulled the tarp off. The top crate was full of old mason jars, empty. The next had rusted tools. The third had blankets, sealed in plastic bags. When I opened one, the blanket inside still smelled faintly of lavender. The fourth crate was different. It was made of darker wood, cedar maybe. It had a small brass latch. I opened it. Inside were books, journals, leather-bound, with ribbon bookmarks. 12 of them. Each one dated on the spine in gold ink. 1960 to 1970. 1971 to 1980. 1981 to 1990. All the way up to 2020 to 2024. I pulled out the most recent one, open to the last entry. The handwriting was shakier than in the letters, but still readable. March 5th, 2024. 6 days before Grace died. I am writing this in the hospital. Dr. Moss says I have maybe 2 weeks. I refuse treatment. I am 86 years old. I am tired. I want to see William again. Marcus, if you are reading this, you came. I knew you would. I waited 52 years. I never gave up hope. Your mother hates me. I don't know why. I have asked myself 1,000 times what I did to make her cut me from her life, cut you from my life. But I never found an answer. All I know is this: I loved you from the moment you were born. I wrote you every month. I prayed for you every night. I kept track of your life through newspaper clippings and whispers from friends in Colorado Springs. I knew when you joined the military, when you married, when you had a daughter, when you divorced. I knew you were hurting. I wished so badly I could help. But I could not reach you. Your mother made sure of that. So I did the only thing I could. I saved this land for you. 80 acres of Montana soil. The place I built my life after William died. The place that saved me when I had nothing left. I hope it saves you too. In the barn, in the northwest corner, there is a root cellar. William's father built it during the Depression. I put something there for you. Use it wisely. Come home, my boy. It is never too late. Your grandmother loves you. Grace. I closed the journal, set it down gently. Then I went to the northwest corner of the barn. The floor there was dirt like everywhere else. But when I scraped at it with my boot, I felt something solid. I got down on my knees, dug with my hands. A wooden hatch, 4 feet by 4 feet, set flush with the ground. I pulled it open. A ladder led down into darkness. I climbed down with my phone light, 8 feet, maybe 10. The root cellar was small, 10 by 12 feet. Ceiling just over 6 feet. Shelves along the walls held jars of preserved vegetables, decades old. Water jugs, a Coleman lantern with fuel cans beside it, wool blankets in sealed plastic. And in the center of the room, on a small wooden table, a metal file box. I opened it. Inside was cash, bundled in rubber bands, 20s and 50s, sorted by year. I counted it. $11,400. There was a note on top, written in Grace's hand. Marcus, this is emergency money. I saved $200 a year for 52 years. I wanted to give you birthday gifts, but I could not reach you. It is yours. Do not feel guilty. I want you to have it. Build something. Love, Grace. I sat down on the dirt floor of the cellar. $11,000. More money than I had seen in one place in years. But that was not why I could not breathe. It was the fact that she saved it. $200 a year, every year. For a grandson she had never met, for a boy who did not know she existed. She believed I would come, and I had, 34 years late, but I had come. I went back up the ladder, back to the loft, lay down on the wooden floor with my jacket as a pillow. Outside, the Montana night was enormous. Through the broken window, I could see stars, thousands of them. The Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of light. I had seen stars in Afghanistan, in the desert, away from cities. You could see everything. But these were different somehow. Softer, like they were closer to Earth. I pulled out my phone, still no service. But I opened my messages anyway, scrolled to Emily. The last text I had sent was 4 months ago. I love you. I am sorry. Please talk to me. Delivered. Never read. I typed a new message. I am in Montana. I inherited a farm from my grandmother, a woman I never knew existed. She loved me for 52 years without ever meeting me. She left me everything she had. I do not understand any of this, but I wanted you to know. I miss you. Love, Dad. I hit send even though I had no service. The message would go out when I got back to town. Then I set the phone down and closed my eyes. I did not expect to sleep. I never slept well. PTSD saw to that. But the silence here was different from city silence. It was not absence of sound. It was presence of something else. Peace, maybe, or just space. I drifted and dreamed of Grace, a woman I had never met, standing in a field of wheat, waving, telling me to come home. When I woke, pale light was coming through the broken window. Dawn in Montana. The air was cold. My breath made clouds. I lay there for a moment listening. Birds, so many birds, singing like they had something worth singing about. Water running in the creek, wind through tall grass. I sat up. My back ached, my neck was stiff. I was 52 years old, sleeping on a barn floor, with $540 to my name, and 11,000 more that felt like a gift from a ghost. I had no job, no home to go back to, no family waiting, but I had this: 80 acres, a barn, a well, a creek, and a grandmother's love, preserved in letters, in journals, in emergency money saved $200 at a time. I stood up, walked to the window. The sun was rising over the mountains to the east, pink and gold light spilling across the valley. The fields looked different in daylight, overgrown, yes, but underneath the weeds I could see the bones of what had been here. Garden rows, fence posts, apple trees, gnarled and wild but alive. This was not the end. This was something else. I did not have a word for it yet, but I was going to find out. I climbed down from the loft, walked outside. The morning was cold, but the air smelled clean, pine and earth and water. I walked to the creek, found it 50 yards behind the barn, clear water running over smooth stones. I knelt, cupped my hands, drank. The water was so cold it made my teeth ache, but it was good. I washed my face. The shock of it cleared my head. Then I walked back to the truck, got in, started the engine. I needed to go back to town, find the diner Nathan had mentioned, get food, figure out what came next. But I took one last look at the farm before I drove away. The barn standing crooked but strong, the foundation where Grace's house had been, the fields waiting for someone to care about them again. My grandmother had waited 52 years. I could wait a little longer to understand what that meant. I put the truck in gear and drove back down the dirt road toward Willow Creek, toward whatever came next, toward home. The truck ran out of gas 4 miles from Willow Creek. I was driving back from the farm, headed into town to find food and figure out what came next, when the engine coughed twice and died. I coasted to the shoulder of the dirt road and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, laughing the way you laugh when nothing is funny anymore. The gauge had been sitting on empty for the last 20 miles. I had known this was coming, I just had not cared enough to stop it. I got out, looked down the road. 4 miles to town, Nathan had said, maybe more. The morning sun was already warm, it was going to be hot by noon. I started walking. The road was dirt and gravel, rutted from spring runoff. Mountains rose on both sides of the valley, pine-covered and massive. The sky was so blue it hurt to look at. No clouds, no planes, nothing but me and the sound of my boots on dirt. I walked for an hour before my feet started to hurt. I was wearing work boots, good ones, but they were meant for standing on construction sites, not hiking. By the second hour, I had blisters forming on both heels. By the third hour, I was limping. The road stayed empty, no cars, no people, nothing. I thought about Afghanistan, about patrols through villages where every window might hide a sniper, about the weight of 60 pounds of gear in 110-degree heat, about Rodriguez walking beside me, making jokes about the food, about the officers, about the girls back home who were definitely not waiting for him. This was easier than that. No one was shooting at me. No one was trying to kill me. I was just walking on a dirt road in Montana. But my body did not know the difference. My heart rate climbed. My breathing got shallow. The mountains around me started to feel like walls closing in. I stopped, bent over with my hands on my knees, forced myself to breathe slowly. In through the nose, count to 4. Out through the mouth, count to 4. The therapist at the VA had taught me this. Back when I still went to therapy, back when I still believed talking about Rodriguez might somehow bring him back or make his death mean something. I straightened up, kept walking. By the time I saw Willow Creek appear ahead, I had been walking for 4.5 hours. My shirt was soaked with sweat. My feet were screaming. I had maybe $40 in my wallet and no way to get back to the farm except walking another 18 miles in the opposite direction. The town was smaller than I expected. One main street, maybe 20 buildings total. A gas station that doubled as a general store. A post office. a hardware store with faded paint, a bar called The Pines, and at the end of the street, a diner with a hand-painted sign that read Creekside. I walked toward the diner because I could smell coffee. The place was small, 10 tables, a counter with 8 stools, red vinyl booths along the windows. The floor was checkered linoleum, worn smooth in the pathways between tables. A ceiling fan turned slowly overhead. There were maybe 6 people inside. All of them turned to look at me when I walked in. I must have looked rough, sweaty, limping, covered in road dust. A woman behind the counter set down the coffee pot she was holding and came around. She was maybe mid-50s, with gray streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her face was weathered but kind. She wore jeans and a flannel shirt and an apron that said Creekside Diner in faded letters. "Honey," she said, "you look like you walked here from Colorado." "Just from the farm," I said. "Truck ran out of gas." Her expression changed. Something flickered in her eyes. "Which farm?" she asked. "Webb Farm, rural Route 7. The diner went completely quiet. The woman stared at me. Then her face broke into a smile so genuine it caught me off guard. "You are Marcus," she said, "Grace's grandson." I nodded. "I am Ruth Callahan," she said. "I own this place. And honey, you need to sit down before you fall down." She guided me to a booth by the window, brought me water in a glass so cold it made my hands ache. I drank it in 3 long swallows. "When did you eat last?" Ruth asked. I had to think about it. "Yesterday morning." She did not say anything, just went back behind the counter and started cooking. The other people in the diner were still watching me. An old man in a feed cap, 2 women who looked like sisters, a younger guy in Carhartt jacket and muddy boots. They were not hostile, just curious. Ruth came back with a plate, scrambled eggs, bacon, toast with butter, hash browns, more food than I had eaten in a single meal in months. "Eat," she said. "I can pay," I said, reaching for my wallet. She put her hand on mine. "Did I ask for money? Eat." I ate. The food was simple but perfect, hot, real. I'd forgotten what real food tasted like. When I finished, Ruth refilled my water and sat down across from me. "Grace talked about you every week for 40 years, she said. "She came in here every Friday morning, always ordered the same thing, eggs over easy, wheat toast, black coffee, and she always talked about you." "I never met her," I said. "I know. She knew that too, but it did not stop her loving you." I looked down at my empty plate. "My mother told me Grace abandoned her, sent her away when she was 12. Ruth was quiet for a moment, then she said, "I do not know what happened between Grace and Margaret. Grace never spoke badly about her daughter, but I know Grace tried. She wrote letters, she called. Margaret returned everything unopened." "Why?" I asked. "Pain," Ruth said simply. "People in pain do terrible things. Your mother was hurting, she blamed Grace, and she made sure you paid for it too." I felt something tighten in my chest. "Grace left me money," I said, $11,000 in a root cellar. "She saved it for me, $200 a year for 52 years. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. She did not wipe them away. "That sounds exactly like Grace," she said. "She believed you would come, even when everyone told her to give up, even when it looked impossible. She believed." "I am here because I had nowhere else to go," I said. "Not because I am a good person, not because I deserve this. I am here because I am broke and homeless, and I have nothing left." Ruth reached across the table and took my hand. Her palm was rough from years of work. Her grip was strong. "Honey," she said, "Grace did not care why you came. She only cared that you did." Something broke inside me then. Not loudly, just a quiet crack like ice beginning to thaw. "I need a job," I said. "I have $40. My truck is out of gas 4 miles from here. I cannot even get back to the farm without walking." Ruth nodded slowly. "Can you wash dishes?" "Yes." "Can you show up on time and work hard?" "Yes." "Then you have a job. 6 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, 6 days a week, $90 a day, cash, meals included. We close Mondays." I stared at her. "Why would you do this?" "Because Grace asked me to," Ruth said. 2 years ago, she came in here and said, "If Marcus ever shows up, give him work. Do not give him money, make him earn it, but give him a chance." She squeezed my hand. "Grace left me $5,000 in her will. Emergency fund," she called it, "in case you needed help, but I think you need work more than charity. Am I right?" I nodded. "Good," Ruth said. "You start tomorrow, 6 sharp. Do not be late." After Ruth fed me, she called someone with a truck who drove out and put gas in my Ford. He would not take money for it. Just said Grace had been good to him once, and he was returning the favor. I drove back to the farm in the afternoon heat, thinking about what Ruth had said. Grace believed you would come. I had spent 52 years not knowing this woman existed, and she had spent 52 years preparing for me anyway. I did not understand that kind of faith, but I was starting to want to. When I got back to the barn, I did not go straight up to the loft. Instead, I walked around the property, really looked at it for the first time. The foundation where the house had been was maybe 40 by 30 feet. Concrete poured thick, built to last. The fire had been intense. You could see it in the charred wood, in the way metal fixtures had melted and fused to stone. But underneath the destruction, I could see the bones of what had been here. A front porch, wide, probably had chairs where Grace sat in the evenings. A root cellar entrance on the north side separate from the one in the barn. A chimney still standing, brick blackened but solid. I walked to the well. The stone surround was waist high, mortared together by someone who knew what they were doing. The hand pump was rusted, but the mechanism looked intact. I put both hands on the handle and pulled. Nothing. I pulled harder, threw my weight into it. The handle moved an inch, stopped. I kept pulling. My shoulders burned. My hands started to blister. On the 20th pull, something deep in the earth gave way. I heard a gurgling sound, then a rush of air, then water, brown and thick with sediment, poured from the spout. I kept pumping, 50 times, 100. The water slowly cleared. By 200 pumps, it ran clean and cold. I cupped my hands under the flow and drank. The water was so cold it made my teeth ache, but it tasted like stone and earth and something ancient. I had water. Behind the barn, I found the creek. Clear water running over smooth stones, maybe 10 feet wide. Trees overhung the banks. Wildflowers grew in the shade. I knelt and put my hand in. The current was strong. The water was snowmelt, straight from the mountains. This was why Grace had chosen this land, why she stayed even after William died, even after Margaret left, even after everyone told her to sell and move somewhere easier. This place was alive. I walked back to the barn as the sun started to set, climbed to the loft, pulled out the journals I had found the night before. There were 12 of them, each one covering a decade or so of Grace's life. I opened the first one. The handwriting was young, confident. The ink was faded but still readable. June 1st, 1960. William and I were married today. The ceremony was small, just family and a few friends. We drove to the farm afterward, our farm now. 40 acres that William's father gave us as a wedding present. The house is small but solid, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a wood stove, a porch where we can watch the sunset. William says we will build something here, a life, a family. I believe him. I have never been happier. Grace Webb. I turned pages, read about their first year, about planting a garden, about buying chickens, about hard work and small joys. Then about Margaret. February 3rd, 1955. Our daughter was born this morning, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. We named her Margaret after William's mother. She has dark hair and blue eyes and the strongest grip I have ever felt. William cried when he held her. I have never seen him cry before. He said, I will give her everything. I will make sure she never wants for anything. I said, William, she already has everything. She has us. I kept reading, watched Margaret grow up through Grace's eyes. A happy child, bright, curious, loved. Then something shifted. The journal from 1970 to 1980 was different. The handwriting was tighter, the entries shorter. March 15th, 1972. William is drinking more. He says it helps him sleep. I say nothing because I do not know what to say. The farm is doing well. We sold 2 tons of apples this year, but William is not happy. He works until dark every night. Comes in exhausted and angry. I ask what is wrong. He says nothing. Everything is fine. But it is not fine. I can see him disappearing inside himself, and I do not know how to bring him back. September 8th, 1973. Margaret is 18 now. She is leaving for college in Bozeman next week. She is angry with me. She says I care more about the farm than about her. She says I made her father into a workaholic who drinks too much. She says when she leaves, she is never coming back. I tried to tell her that is not true, that I love her more than anything, but she would not listen. William did not defend me. He just sat there drinking, saying nothing. April 12th, 1985. William died this morning. Liver failure. The doctor said it was from the drinking, years of it, destroying him from the inside. Margaret came to the funeral. She stood on the other side of the grave from me, would not look at me, would not speak to me. After they lowered the casket, she walked up and said, "This is your fault. You killed him. You and this farm." Then she left. I have not heard from her since. I set the journal down, stared at the ceiling of the barn. Grace had not abandoned Margaret. Margaret had abandoned Grace, blamed her for William's death, for his drinking, for whatever pain lived inside him that he could not name or fix. And when Margaret had a son, she made sure that son would never know his grandmother. Made sure Grace would spend 40 more years alone on this farm, writing letters that came back unopened, saving money for a grandson she would never meet. I picked up the next journal, 1985 to 1995. The entries were about loneliness, about keeping the farm running alone, about selling apples and vegetables at the farmer's market, about the people in Willow Creek who became her family when her real family disappeared, and about me, August 22nd, 1990. I heard from Ruth that Margaret's son joined the Marines. His name is Marcus. He is 18 years old. I sent him a letter at his boot camp address. I do not know if he will get it. I do not know if Margaret told him about me, but I had to try. I had to let him know that someone is thinking of him. Someone is proud of him. Someone loves him. November 4th, 2001. I saw a news report about the war in Afghanistan. I have been sick with worry ever since. Is Marcus there? Is he safe? I have no way to know. I write him letters every month. They all come back. But I keep writing. Because what else can I do? How else can I tell him I am praying for him every single day? March 19th, 2015. I heard through a friend that Marcus got divorced. I do not know if it is true. I do not know if he has children. I do not know if he is happy or sad or struggling. All I know is that I am here, waiting. If he ever needs a place to land, this farm is his. It has always been his. I wrote it into my will today. Everything I have goes to Marcus Webb, my grandson, the boy I have loved from a distance for 40 years. Nathan Pierce says I should leave it to charity instead. Says Marcus might not want it, might not even know who I am. I told Nathan, blood is blood, and love does not need permission. I closed the journal, sat in the darkness of the loft. Grace had known about my divorce, about Afghanistan, about all of it. She had followed my life the way you follow a story you are not allowed to be part of. And she had never stopped hoping I would come home. I did not sleep much that night. I lay on the floor of the loft and listened to the barns settle around me. Wood creaking, mice scurrying, the wind outside making sounds like voices. At 4 a.m, I gave up on sleep and climbed down. Walked outside into the Montana darkness. The stars were even brighter than the night before. I could see the Milky Way stretching from horizon to horizon. Could see Jupiter, a bright point above the mountains. Could see satellites moving in slow arcs across the black. I thought about Grace standing in this exact spot, looking at these same stars, wondering if I was looking at them too, somewhere far away. I was, I thought. I just did not know you were here. When dawn came, I washed in the creek. The water was so cold it stopped my breath. But it woke me up, made me feel alive in a way I had not felt in years. I drove into Willow Creek and arrived at the diner at 5:55. Ruth was already there, prepping for the morning rush. "You are early," she said. "Marines," I said. "Early is on time is late." She smiled. "You will do fine here." She put me on dishes, showed me the system, how to scrape plates, how to stack them, how to load the industrial dishwasher and run it hot enough to sanitize. It was simple work, mindless. My hands knew what to do without my brain having to think. The morning rush started at 6:30. Farmers coming in for breakfast before heading to their fields. Loggers. A few people who worked at the hardware store or the post office. They all looked at me. The stranger, the new guy. But Ruth introduced me. "This is Marcus, Grace Webb's grandson. He is working here now." And just like that, I was not a stranger anymore. I was Grace's grandson. An old man in a feed cap nodded to me. "Grace made the best apple butter in 3 counties. You know how to make it?" "No, sir," I said. "She left you her recipes," he said, "in her journals. You should learn." A woman in her 60s stopped by the kitchen window. "Your grandmother helped my family through a bad winter in 1998. Brought us food, did not ask for anything in return, just said pay it forward someday." Another man, younger, maybe 40. "Grace lent my dad money to keep his ranch when the bank was going to foreclose. 0 interest. Told him to pay it back when he could. He did. 10 years later, she never asked about it, just said, I knew you would. I listened to these stories and realized I was learning about Grace through the people she had helped. She had not been alone on this farm. She had been part of a community that remembered her, that loved her. And now they were offering that same love to me. Not because I deserved it, but because I was hers. I worked 6 days that first week, 6 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, washing dishes, cleaning tables, sweeping floors, taking out trash. Ruth paid me $90 a day in cash, $540 for the week. It was more money than I had made in a month doing nothing. And it felt good, honest, earned. Every afternoon I drove back to the farm, spent the rest of the daylight cleaning the barn, hauling out years of accumulated trash. Rotted hay, rusted equipment too broken to fix, dead mice, bird droppings, layers of dust thick as carpet. I found things buried in the mess. Old tools, well made, worth keeping. A wheelbarrow with a flat tire but a solid frame. Leather harnesses for horses long dead. A hand scythe with a blade that just needed sharpening. And on Saturday afternoon in the northwest corner of the barn where I had found the root cellar, I found something else. A wooden cabinet, 4 feet tall, 2 feet wide, locked with a rusted padlock. I broke the lock with a hammer. Inside were more journals, not Grace's. These were older. The leather covers were cracked. The pages were yellowed. I opened the first one. The handwriting was different. Masculine. Firm. William Webb. 1960. My grandfather's journals. I sat down on the floor and started reading. June 15th, 1960. Married Grace today. Best decision of my life. We are going to build something here. Something that lasts. I am going to make my father proud. Going to prove I can be a man, a husband, a farmer. I am scared I will fail. But Grace believes in me. That has to be enough. I turned pages. Read about the early years. About William working himself to exhaustion. About trying to prove something to a father who had died without ever saying he was proud. Then the tone changed. November 3rd, 1970. I am not enough. The farm does well. We make money. Margaret has everything she needs. Grace never complains, but I feel it every day. The weight of being less than I should be. My father built this place with his hands, made it profitable through the Depression, through the war, through everything, and I am just maintaining it, not growing it, not making it better, just keeping it alive. Grace says that is enough, but she is wrong. I need to be more. I need to prove I am not weak. March 8th, 1975. Started drinking to sleep. Just a glass of whiskey before bed helps quiet the voice in my head that says I am failing. Grace worries. I tell her I am fine, but I am not fine. I am terrified that one day she will wake up and realize she married the wrong man. The entries got darker, shorter, more desperate. By 1980, William was drinking every night. By 1983, he was drunk most afternoons. By 1985, he was dying. The final entry was dated April 10th, 1985, 2 days before Grace wrote that he died. I am sorry, Grace. I am sorry I was not the man you deserved. I am sorry I let the farm consume me. I am sorry I drank instead of talked. I am sorry I am leaving you alone. You deserve better than me. Margaret deserved better than me. I failed you both. I am so sorry. I closed the journal. William had not died because Grace pushed him too hard. He had died because he pushed himself too hard, because he could not forgive himself for being human, for having limits, for not being perfect. And Margaret had blamed Grace anyway, had carried that blame for 40 years, had poisoned her own son with it, had made sure I would never know the grandmother who loved me. I sat in the barn as the light faded outside, thought about my own failures, about Kevin Brandt dying because I froze, about Sarah leaving because I could not explain what war had done to me, about Emily cutting me off because I scared her with my anger and my pain, about all the ways I had failed to be the man I thought I should be, and about how I had blamed everyone except myself. I heard an engine outside. I walked to the barn door. An old pickup truck was pulling into the yard. Faded blue, dented fenders, Montana plates. A man got out. Late 50s, maybe 60, weathered face, Carhartt jacket, work boots caked in mud. He walked toward me slowly, not threatening, just careful. You are Marcus, he said. It was not a question. Yes, sir. I am Sam Porter. I farmed 2 miles east of here. Grace was my neighbor for 30 years. He held out his hand. I shook it. His grip was strong, calloused. Heard you were here, Sam said. Heard Blake Hartley came by yesterday. I went still. Who is Blake Hartley? Your cousin, Sam said. Sort of. His grandfather, George, was Grace's brother. They had not spoken in 40 years. George died in 2010. Blake inherited the ranch south of here, 400 acres. He sold it to a development company 2 years ago for $3 million. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Sam looked past me at the barn, at the burned foundation, at the overgrown fields. Because Blake wants this land too, he said. Whole Valley is being eyed for resort development. Rich people from California want to build vacation homes. Blake already sold his piece. Now he wants yours. The land is mine, I said. Grace left it to me. I know, Sam said. But Blake will fight you on it. He has lawyers, he has money, and he has time. What do you suggest I do? Sam smiled. It was not a happy smile. Learn to farm. Make this place productive. Show everyone you are not just here to flip it for profit. Build something. I do not know how to farm, I said. I know. That is why I am here. Grace lent me $8,000 in 1998 when the bank was going to foreclose on my place. 0 interest. Told me to pay it back when I could. I paid her back in 2005. She said pay it forward instead. He looked at me. This is me paying it forward. I will teach you, but you have to work. You have to listen. And you have to decide if you are really staying or just passing through. I'm staying, I said. Good, Sam said. Then let me show you how to get that well pump working properly. We spent the next 2 hours working on the pump. Sam showed me how to prime it, how to maintain it, how to keep it from freezing in winter. Then he showed me where the old garden beds were, where Grace had grown vegetables for 60 years. The soil was good, he said, just needed work. By the time he left, the sun was setting. Tomorrow is Sunday, Sam said. I will come by at 8. Bring tools. We will start clearing those garden beds. You ready? Yes, sir. He nodded, got in his truck, started to drive away. Then he stopped, rolled down his window. Marcus, he said, Grace talked about you every time I saw her. For 30 years. She never gave up hope you would come. Do not make her wrong about you. Then he drove away. I stood in the yard as darkness fell. Thought about Grace believing in me for 52 years. About Sam offering to teach me because Grace had believed in him first. About Ruth giving me work because Grace had asked her to. About a web of connection and faith and hope that I had stumbled into without deserving it. I went back to the loft, read more of Grace's journals by lantern light, found an entry from 2023, 1 year before she died. December 25th, 2023. Christmas Day. I am alone as always. But I do not feel alone. I set a place at the table for Marcus, cooked a meal for 2, pretended he was here, told him about the farm, about the apple harvest, about the neighbors, about everything. I know it sounds crazy, but it made me happy to imagine my grandson here, to imagine him home. Nathan Pierce says I should change my will, says Marcus might not want this place, might not even care. I told Nathan he will care. When he is ready, when he needs it, he will come, and I will be waiting. I closed the journal, put my head in my hands. Grace had set a place for me at Christmas dinner, had cooked for me, had talked to me even though I was not there. And I had been in Colorado drunk and angry and alone with no idea she existed. I did not cry. I had not cried in 8 years. PTSD had burned that capacity out of me. But I felt something crack inside my chest, something that had been frozen for a very long time. The next morning, Sam came back at 8 sharp with tools and a plan. We spent all day clearing the garden beds, pulling weeds, turning soil, hauling rocks. My back ached, my hands blistered, my shoulders burned. But the work felt good, real, like I was building something instead of tearing myself apart. We worked until the sun set. Then Sam showed me how to make a fire in the old wood stove in the barn, how to cook beans and rice over it, how to make coffee strong enough to wake the dead. We ate in silence, the kind of silence that is comfortable between men who understand that some things do not need words. When Sam left, I walked to the creek, washed in the cold water, let it shock me clean. Then I climbed to the loft and slept harder than I had slept in years. I worked at the diner 6 days, worked on the farm every afternoon and all day Sunday with Sam. Fell into a rhythm, a routine. Week 2, I made another $540, added it to the $11,000 from Grace. I had money, not a lot, but enough. Week 3, the garden beds were clear. Sam brought seeds, showed me how to plant, how to water, how to pray for rain and prepare for drought. I learned. Week 4, green shoots started appearing in the soil. Tiny, fragile, but alive. I had planted something, and it was growing. On Friday of the 4th week, I was washing dishes at the diner when Ruth came into the kitchen. "Marcus," she said, "someone is here to see you." I dried my hands, walked out to the dining room. A man stood near the counter, late 30s, expensive suit, designer watch, hair styled perfectly. He looked like he had stepped out of a magazine about wealth. Behind him were 2 other people, a woman in a business suit carrying a briefcase, a man in khakis and a polo shirt who had the careful posture of someone who used to be military. The man in the suit smiled when he saw me. It was not a kind smile. "Marcus Webb," he said, "I am Blake Hartley. We need to talk." I looked at Ruth. She gave me a small nod. "Go ahead." I walked outside with Blake. His 2 companions followed. Blake gestured to a Mercedes G-Wagon parked on the street. Black. Immaculate. "Nice truck," I said. "I do well," Blake said, "which is why I am here. I want to make you an offer." "For what?" "The Webb property, 80 acres. I represent a development company that is buying land in this valley. We are planning a resort, high-end vacation homes, golf course, the works. Your land is key to the project." "It is not for sale," I said. Blake smiled again. "Everything is for sale, Marcus. It is just a question of price. I am offering you $150,000. Cash. You sign the deed over today, you walk away rich." "The land is worth more than that," I said. "Maybe, maybe not. It needs work. $500,000 in improvements minimum. You do not have that kind of money, and you do not have the expertise to make it profitable. So really, I am doing you a favor." The woman in the suit stepped forward. "Mr. Webb, I am Michelle Crane. I represent Mr. Hartley. We have done our research. The property has been abandoned for 15 years. The house burned down. The barn is falling apart. You have no farming experience, no capital, no realistic path to making this work." "I am making it work," I said. "Are you?" Michelle opened her briefcase, pulled out a folder. "We also know about your background. Fired from your construction job 3 months ago after a coworker died. PTSD, history of alcohol abuse, divorced, estranged from your daughter. You are not exactly a success story, Mr. Webb." The man in khaki stepped forward. He handed me a business card. "Ryan Foster, private investigator." "I did a full background check," Ryan said. "Kevin Brandt, 27 years old, died because you froze. Your ex-wife Sarah filed a restraining order in 2023. Your daughter Emily has not spoken to you in over a year. You are barely keeping your head above water. This farm is your last chance, and you are going to fail, just like you failed at everything else." I felt my hands start to shake, felt the PTSD rising like a wave, felt my vision start to narrow. Blake stepped closer. "Marcus, I am not your enemy. I am trying to help you. Take the money. Start over somewhere else. Do not make this harder than it needs to be." "Get off my property," I said. Blake's smile disappeared. "This is not your property yet. Not legally. I am contesting the will. Grace Webb had dementia in her final years. She was not mentally competent when she wrote you into her will. My lawyers are filing paperwork next week. You are going to have to prove in court that you deserve this land." "She was not sick," I said. "According to who? You never met her. You have no idea what her mental state was. But I have medical records. I have witnesses. I have proof." Michelle stepped forward again. "There is also the matter of property taxes, Mr. Webb. Grace paid through 2024, but the 2025 tax bill is due July 1st. $4,800. Do you have that money?" I did not answer. "I thought not," Blake said. "So here is what is going to happen. You will default on the taxes. The county will seize the property. It will go to auction, and I will buy it for pennies on the dollar. Or you can save yourself the embarrassment and take my offer now." He pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket, held it out. $150,000, Marcus. More money than you have ever had. Take it. Walk away before you lose everything. I looked at the document, at Blake's smug face, at Michelle and Ryan standing behind him like sentries. Then I looked past them, at the mountains, at the valley, at the town where Ruth had given me work and Sam had taught me to farm, and an entire community had welcomed me because I was Grace's grandson. "No," I said. Blake stared at me. "What?" I said, "No, the land is mine. Grace left it to me, and I am keeping it." Blake's expression went cold. "You are making a mistake." "Maybe," I said, "but it is my mistake to make." Blake put the document back in his pocket. Fine, see you in court, cousin. He got in his Mercedes. Michelle and Ryan got in with him. They drove away. I stood on the street outside the diner, shaking, trying to breathe. $4,800 in taxes, due in 90 days. I had maybe $12,000 total. After taxes, I would have $7,000 left, barely enough to survive the summer. And Blake was going to contest the will, drag me into court, force me to prove I deserved Grace's land. I had no idea how to fight that, but I knew one thing. I was not giving up. Not on this farm, not on Grace's faith in me, not on the life I was starting to build. I walked back into the diner. Ruth was waiting. How bad? She asked. Bad, I said, but I am not leaving. She smiled. Good, then let us figure out how to fight. I went back to work, finished my shift, drove to the farm. Sam was there waiting. He had heard about Blake's visit. He is going to come at you hard, Sam said. Lawyers, money, pressure. You ready for that? No, I said, but I do not have a choice. Sam nodded. Then we better get to work. We worked until dark, and I realized something. I was not alone anymore. I had Ruth, I had Sam, I had a community that believed in me. And I had Grace's journals, her faith, her love. That had to be enough. It had to be. The morning after Blake's threat, I woke at 4:30 and could not fall back asleep. My mind kept running the numbers. $4,800 in property taxes due July 1st. That gave me 90 days. 13 weeks. I was making $90 a day at the diner, 6 days a week, $540 a week, $7,020 in 13 weeks if nothing went wrong. After taxes, I would have maybe $2,000 left. Maybe. That assumed I did not eat, did not buy gas, did not need anything at all. I lay in the loft of the barn and watched the Montana dawn come through the broken windows. Pink light spreading across the sky like spilled paint, birds starting their morning songs, the world waking up around me. I thought about giving up, about taking Blake's offer. $150,000, more money than I had ever had, enough to start over somewhere warm, somewhere without winter that tried to kill you, somewhere easier. But then I thought about Grace, about 52 years of letters, about $200 saved every year for a grandson she never met, about faith that did not require proof. I got up, washed my face in the creek. The water was so cold it made my skull ache, but it woke me up, made me remember I was alive. I drove to the diner and started my shift. Ruth was already there making coffee. She looked at me and knew something was wrong. You sleep? She asked. Not much. She poured me coffee. Black, strong enough to strip paint. Blake rattled you, she said. He told me the taxes are $4,800, due in 90 days. Ruth nodded slowly. Grace paid through last year. I knew the bill would come. I cannot make that much in 3 months. Not working here, not unless I stop eating. Then you need another revenue stream, Ruth said. What did Grace have that people wanted? I thought about the journals, about the stories people had told me. Apple butter, I said. People drove from 3 counties for her apple butter. The orchard is still there, Ruth said. Overgrown, but alive. Sam knows how to prune apple trees. He could teach you. The apples would not be ready until fall, September maybe. The taxes are due in July. So you need something faster. What else can you grow in 3 months? I thought about the garden beds Sam and I had cleared, about the seeds we had planted. Vegetables, I said. Lettuce, radishes, things that grow fast. Farmers market opens May 15th, Ruth said. Every Saturday through October. You could sell there. I have never sold anything in my life. Ruth smiled. Then you had better learn. That afternoon after my shift, I met Sam at the farm. I told him about the taxes, about needing money fast, about the farmer's market. He listened without interrupting. Then he nodded. You need chickens, he said. Chickens? Eggs sell. Fresh eggs. People pay good money. I have 6 hens I can sell you. $60 for all 6. They will give you 3 to 4 dozen eggs a week. You sell those for $4 a dozen. That is $12 to $16 a week. Not much, but it adds up. I do not know how to raise chickens. I will teach you. But Marcus, you need to understand something. Farming is not quick money. It is slow money, steady money. You put in the work every single day, and eventually it pays. But there are no shortcuts, no lottery wins, just work. I looked at the garden beds we had cleared, at the apple trees waiting to be pruned, at the barn that needed repairs, at the 100 things that needed fixing. I will work, I said. Just tell me what to do. Over the next 6 weeks, Sam taught me to farm. He showed me how to build a chicken coop using scrap lumber from the barn, how to make it secure against predators, how to build roosts and nesting boxes, how to give the chickens water and feed in space to scratch. The work was harder than I expected. My hands blistered, my back ached. But there was something satisfying about building something with your own hands, about making something that would last. When the coop was finished, Sam brought 6 chickens, red hens with bright eyes and glossy feathers. He showed me how to handle them, how to collect eggs, how to watch for signs of illness. The first morning I found 3 eggs in the nesting boxes, I felt like I had struck gold. Sam taught me about gardening, about soil and seeds and water and timing, about which plants grew fast and which took time, about companion planting, about organic pest control. We planted rows of lettuce, radishes, spinach, peas, things that would be ready by late May, things I could sell at the farmer's market. I spent every penny I could spare on seeds and tools and chicken feed and supplies. $900 from Grace's emergency fund. It hurt to spend it, but Sam said you have to invest to make a return. I had to trust him. The farmer's market opened on May 15th, a Saturday. I loaded my truck with everything I had: 2 crates of lettuce, 1 crate of radishes, 3 dozen eggs, a folding table Sam lent me, a handwritten sign that said Webb Farm. The market was in the parking lot of the community center in Willow Creek. Maybe 20 vendors, farmers selling vegetables and honey and bread, craftspeople selling pottery and jewelry and woodwork. The smell of coffee and fresh baked goods filled the air. I set up my table in a corner spot, arranged my produce, waited. People walked by, looked, kept walking. By noon I had sold nothing. I started to pack up, started to think this was a mistake, that Blake was right, that I was going to fail. Then an old woman stopped at my table. She picked up a head of lettuce, examined it, looked at me. "You are Marcus Webb," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "Grace's grandson." "Yes, ma'am." She smiled. "Grace grew the best lettuce in Montana. Is this from her soil?" "Yes, ma'am. Same garden beds she used." The woman bought 2 heads of lettuce and a dozen eggs, paid me $10, told me to keep the change. After that, people started coming. Not because my vegetables were special, but because I was Grace's grandson, because they remembered her, because buying from me was a way of honoring her memory. By the end of the day, I had sold everything, made $45. It was not much, but it was a start. I went every Saturday after that. Week by week, my sales grew. $45 became 60, 60 became 80. By week 4, I was making 110. By week 8, I was making 180. I was not going to make 4,800 by July, but I was making progress. And progress felt like hope. On a Saturday in early June, a woman I had never seen before stopped at my table. She was maybe late 40s, fit, expensive yoga clothes, sunglasses that probably cost more than my weekly earnings. She drove a BMW X5 with Denver plates. She picked up a bunch of radishes, examined them like she was evaluating art. "These are organic?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. No pesticides, no chemicals." "What about the soil? Is it regenerative?" I had no idea what that meant. "The soil is good. It has been worked for 60 years. She set down the radishes. Did not buy anything, but she left a $5 bill on the table anyway. "For your effort," she said. Then she walked away. I watched her go, wondered who drives from Denver to Willow Creek just to look at vegetables. But I took the $5 and added it to my cash box. 10 days later, on June 20th, a sheriff's deputy came to the farm. I was in the garden, weeding between rows of lettuce when I heard the car. I stood up, wiped my hands on my jeans, walked to meet him. The deputy was young, maybe 30. He looked uncomfortable. "Marcus Webb?" he asked. "Yes." He handed me a manila envelope. "You have been served." Then he got back in his car and drove away. I opened the envelope. Inside was a legal document. 20 pages, dense text, court seals and signatures in language I barely understood. But the first page was clear enough. Blake Hartley versus Marcus Webb. Contest of last will and testament. Petition for determination of mental incapacity. Claim of undue influence. The court date was set for September 15th, 3 months away. I sat down on the ground and read the whole thing. Blake was claiming that Grace had dementia in her final years, that she was not mentally competent when she wrote her will, that I had somehow influenced her even though I had never met her, that the property should pass to Grace's surviving family, which meant Blake through his grandfather George. The document listed 3 expert witnesses, doctors who would testify to Grace's mental decline, medical records that supposedly proved she was confused and forgetful. I thought about Grace's journals, about the clear handwriting, about the detailed entries right up until 6 days before she died, about the careful planning, the root cellar, the emergency money, the letters to Nathan Pierce. None of that sounded like dementia. But Blake had lawyers and money and time, and I had nothing. I called Nathan Pierce from my truck where I had cell service. I got the lawsuit, I said. I know. I received a copy too. Blake is coming at you hard. Can he win? Nathan was quiet for a moment. Honestly, maybe. He has resources. He has expert witnesses willing to say whatever he pays them to say. We can fight it, but it will be expensive, 15,000 minimum, maybe 20, and there are no guarantees. I do not have that kind of money. Then we will do the best we can with what you have. Bring me Grace's journals, her letters, anything that shows she was lucid and competent. I will build a case around that. What are my chances? Better than zero, worse than certain. That is all I can tell you. I hung up, sat in the truck for a long time. Then I drove back to the barn and went back to work. Because work was all I had. Sam came by that evening. I showed him the lawsuit. He read it slowly. His face got harder with each page. Blake is a bastard, he said finally. But he is not stupid. He knows the property is worth millions if it gets developed. He will spend whatever it takes to get it. I cannot fight him, I said. I do not have the money. Then you better make the money. How are those apple trees looking? We walked to the orchard together. 40 trees, gnarled and wild, but alive. Sam walked between them, examining branches, looking at leaves. Heritage varieties, he said. Honey Crisp, Cortland, Wealthy. Nobody grows these commercially anymore. They are too much work, but the flavor is better than anything you buy in a store. He pointed to small green fruits forming on the branches. Baby apples, hard and green but growing. You prune these right, water them, protect them from deer. You could harvest 600 to 800 pounds in September. Grace's apple butters sold for $12 a jar. 100 jars is $1,200. 200 jars is $2,400. The taxes are due in July. September is too late. So the apples are not for taxes. They are for legal fees. You win the court case, you keep the farm. You lose, it does not matter what you paid in taxes. Blake gets everything. Sam was right. I needed to think longer term, not just survive to July, but survive to September and beyond. Teach me, I said. Sam spent the next 6 weeks teaching me about apple trees, how to prune for fruit production, how to remove dead wood and shape branches to catch sunlight, how to thin the fruit so the apples that remained would grow larger. The work destroyed my hands. Pruning shears gave me blisters on top of blisters. My palms bled, my fingers cramped. But the trees responded. After pruning, they looked cleaner, stronger. The apples started to swell. I hauled water from the creek in 5-gallon buckets, walked back and forth 100 times a day, dumped water at the base of each tree, watched the soil drink it in. My back ached constantly. My shoulders burned. I lost weight I could not afford to lose. But the apples kept growing. In mid-July, the woman from the farmer's market came back, the one with the BMW and the expensive sunglasses. She pulled up to the farm while I was working in the orchard, got out of her car, walked toward me through the tall grass. Up close, she was prettier than I had realized. Dark hair pulled back, no makeup, lines around her eyes that suggested she smiled a lot, or used to. I am Claire, she said. Claire Donovan. I bought radishes from you in June. I remember you did not actually buy them, you just left money. She smiled. Fair point. Can I ask what you are doing? Pruning apple trees. For harvest? For survival. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, can I help? Why would you want to do that? Because I have been staying in Missoula for 2 months trying to figure out what to do with my life. And watching you work is the first thing that has made sense in a long time. I did not understand, but I also did not have time to question good fortune. You know anything about apple trees, I asked? No, but I can follow instructions. I handed her pruning shears, showed her what to cut and what to leave. She worked carefully, methodically, like someone used to doing things right. We worked until sunset, did not talk much, just cut branches and hauled them to a burn pile and moved to the next tree. When it got too dark to see, we stopped. Thank you, I said. Can I come back tomorrow? Claire asked. Why? Because I need this as much as you do. She did not explain what she meant, and I did not ask. Claire came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. She stayed at an Airbnb in Missoula, but drove out to the farm every morning, worked until evening, then drove back. After a week, I asked her what she did for a living. I was a marketing director, she said. Denver. Corporate. I worked 80-hour weeks for 18 years, made good money, hated every minute. Why did you keep doing it? Because I did not know what else to do, and because it was easier than admitting I was miserable. What changed? She was quiet for a long time. We were hauling water from the creek. The sun was setting. The sky was turning purple and gold. My son died, she said finally. Nathan, he was 19, car accident, drunk driver. I was at work when the police called. I had been at work when he tried to call me earlier that day. I was too busy to answer. She set down the water bucket, looked at me. He died thinking I did not have time for him, and he was right. I did not. I chose work over him, every single day, and now he is gone and I have all the time in the world and nobody to give it to. I did not know what to say, so I said nothing. Just stood there with her while the Montana sky turned dark. I came here to disappear, Claire said. Maybe drive into the mountains and not come back. But then I saw you at the farmer's market. Ruth told me your story, about Grace, about the letters, about you showing up with nothing and trying to build something. And I thought maybe that is what I need too, to build something, even if I do not know what. This is just a farm, I said. It is not going to save you. Maybe not, Claire said, but it is better than the alternative. We kept working. Through July, through August, the apples swelled and changed color. Green to yellow to red. The harvest was coming. Claire and I fell into an easy rhythm. We did not talk much, but the silence was comfortable. She told me about Nathan, about her ex-husband who left her for someone younger, about the corporate job that paid well but hollowed her out. I told her about Emily, about Sarah, about Kevin Brandt and Rodriguez, and all the ways I had failed people who counted on me. We were two broken people working in an orchard, trying to grow something good. And somewhere in there, without planning it, we became friends. By late August, the farmer's market was bringing in $200 a week. The chickens were laying well. I had sold enough eggs and vegetables to save another $1,000. I had enough for the property taxes, barely, with maybe $300 left over. On July 1st, I drove to the county office and paid $4,800 in cash. The clerk counted it twice, stamped my receipt, handed it back. Paid in full, she said. I walked out of that building with $312 to my name. But the farm was mine, for another year at least. Now I just had to win the court case and survive the winter. The weather forecast came on December 18th. I was at the diner when Ruth turned up the radio. Historic blizzard approaching. Wind chills of 42 below zero. 60 inches of snow expected. Travel not recommended. Potentially deadly conditions. The weatherman's voice was serious in a way that made my stomach drop. Ruth looked at me. You cannot stay at the farm during this. I have to, I said. The chickens, the barn, everything I own is there. Marcus, you will die. I will prepare. I will be fine. But I was not sure I believed it. I drove to the farm that afternoon, spent the rest of the day preparing, moved the chickens into the barn, gave them extra bedding and food and water, set up a propane heater in the corner where they would roost, stacked firewood inside, filled every container I had with water from the well, brought in extra blankets, extra food, everything I could think of. By nightfall on the 19th, I was as ready as I was going to be. The storm hit at 10 o'clock. I was in the barn with the chickens and the heater and a pile of blankets. The wind hit like an explosion. The whole barn shook. I heard boards creaking, nails screaming, the sound of something tearing away from the roof. Through the gaps in the walls, I could see snow. Sideways, horizontal, moving so fast it looked like white static. The temperature dropped. I watched the thermometer on the wall. 30 degrees, 20, 10, 0. Then below zero. -10, -15, -20. The propane heater roared, but it could not keep up. My breath made clouds. Frost formed on the inside of the barn walls. The chickens huddled together for warmth. I pulled blankets around myself and tried to stay calm. At 2 in the morning, the heater sputtered, coughed, died. I stared at it, felt panic rising in my chest. The propane tank was empty. I had one spare tank, outside, 40 yards away, buried under what was probably 3 feet of snow by now. If I did not get it, I would freeze to death before morning. I put on every piece of clothing I own, 3 pairs of socks, 2 pairs of pants, 4 shirts, my heaviest jacket, gloves, a hat pulled down over my ears. Then I opened the barn door. The wind hit me like a fist, knocked me backward. I could not see anything, just white, pure white in every direction. I stepped outside and the door slammed behind me. The cold was immediate, absolute. It burned my lungs, made my eyes water, froze the tears on my face instantly. I could not see the propane tank, could not see anything. I walked in the direction I thought it was, counting steps, 1, 2, 3. At 10 steps, I fell, went face down in snow that came up to my chest. I could not breathe, could not see. The wind was screaming, the snow was everywhere. For a moment, I thought about staying down, about letting the cold take me. It would be easier than fighting. Then I heard Rodriguez's voice. Not a hallucination, not real, but my brain giving me what I needed to survive. Get up, Sergeant. You do not die here. I got up, kept walking, fell again, got up again. Found the propane tank by running into it. It was buried. I dug with my hands. The snow was hard, frozen. My gloves were useless. I pulled them off, dug with bare hands. My fingers went numb almost immediately. Then they started to burn. Then they stopped feeling like anything at all. I got the tank free, picked it up. It weighed 40 pounds, felt like 400. I turned back toward the barn, could not see it, could not see anything. I started walking in the direction I thought was right, counting steps, 20, 30, 40. The barn should have been here. I had only walked 40 yards, but there was nothing, just white, just cold, just the wind trying to tear me apart. I was going to die out here, 10 feet from safety, and I was going to die because I could not see. Then I tripped over something, fell, landed against wood. The barn wall. I felt along it, found the door, pulled it open, fell inside. I lay on the barn floor for a long time, could not move, could not think, just breathed. Then I forced myself up, disconnected the empty propane tank, connected the full one. My hands would not work right. I could not feel my fingers, could not make them grip. But somehow I got it done. The heater roared to life. I collapsed next to it, pulled blankets over myself, shook so hard my teeth rattled. The chickens came over, surrounded me. Their body heat pressed against me through the blankets. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, it was light outside. The storm had passed. I tried to stand up, could not. My legs would not work. My hands were swollen. My fingers were black. I heard voices outside, then the barn door opened. Sam and Frank stood there. Their faces went white when they saw me. Jesus Christ, Sam said. They got me to Frank's truck, drove me to the clinic in town. Dr. Helen Moss was waiting. She took one look at my hands and started barking orders. They put me in a bed, hooked me up to warming blankets, took my temperature, 92 degrees. Another hour and you would have been dead, Dr. Moss said. She examined my hands. My fingers were swollen and dark. 2nd-degree frostbite on 3 fingers of my left hand, 1st degree on my right. You will have scars, she said, permanent nerve damage. You are lucky you are not losing fingers. I did not feel lucky, but I was alive. The chickens were alive. The farm was still mine. I stayed at Sam's house for a week while I recovered. Claire came every day, sat by my bed, read Grace's journals to me when I was too weak to hold them myself. She found an entry from 1972. Margaret at 17, fighting with Grace about William's drinking. Grace wrote, Margaret blames me for her father's pain. She says I pushed him too hard, made him work himself to death on this farm. She does not understand that William pushed himself, that he was running from demons I could not see, that I begged him to slow down, to get help, to talk to me, but he would not. And now Margaret carries his pain like inheritance. She will never forgive me, and I cannot change the past. All I can do is love her. Even if she hates me, even if she takes my grandson away, I will keep loving her, because that is what mothers do. Claire set down the journal, looked at me. Your mother blamed Grace for something that was not her fault, she said, and she made you pay for it. I know, I said. My whole life, I thought nobody wanted me, I said, that I was too broken, too damaged, too much trouble. But Grace wanted me. She wanted me before I was born, and she kept wanting me for 52 years. She believed in you, Claire said, even when you did not believe in yourself. I almost gave up, I said. In the snow, I almost stayed down. But you did not. You got up. You survived. That is what matters. I looked at my hands, at the black fingers, at the scars that would never go away. I do not know if I can keep doing this, I said. the farm, the fight with Blake, all of it. I am tired, Claire. She took my good hand in hers. Then rest, she said, but do not quit. Grace did not wait 52 years for you to quit. She was right. I rested for a week. Then I went back to the farm. My hands did not work right anymore. The damaged fingers were stiff. I could not grip things the way I used to. But I could still work, still plant, still harvest, still fight. The apples came in at the end of August, 640 pounds. Sam and Frank helped me pick them. Ruth let me use her commercial kitchen to make apple butter. I followed Grace's recipe from her journal. Cooked apples low and slow, with cinnamon and cloves and brown sugar. Filled jar after jar, 130 jars total. I sold them at the farmer's market, $12 each. Sold out in 3 weeks, $1,560. Not enough for legal fees, but enough to show I was fighting. Blake's court date was September 15th. I had 3 weeks to prepare, and I was going to use every one of them. Claire stayed. She did not go back to Denver. Did not go back to her empty condo and her empty life. She rented a small apartment above the hardware store in Willow Creek. Started helping at the farm every day. We did not talk about what we were becoming, did not define it, but there was something there, something quiet and certain. One evening in late August, we sat on the burned foundation where Grace's house used to be, watching the sunset. The sky was turning colors I did not have names for, purple and orange and pink all bleeding together. What will you do if you lose? Claire asked. I do not know. Start over somewhere else, I guess. Find another job, another town where nobody knows me. Would you take Blake's offer, the money? I thought about it. No, even if I lose in court, I would not take his money. This place belongs to Grace, not to him. If I cannot keep it, I would rather it go to someone who needs it, not someone who just wants to develop it. Claire was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I have money. I looked at her. From the divorce, from selling the condo. I have about $200,000 sitting in a bank account doing nothing. I could pay your legal fees, all of them. You would not have to worry. I cannot take your money. Why not? Because I barely know you. Because you do not owe me anything. Because I cannot pay you back. I am not asking you to pay me back, Claire said. I am asking you to let me help. I came here because I needed purpose. This farm gives me that. You give me that. Let me do this. I wanted to say yes. God, I wanted to say yes, but something in me resisted. Pride maybe, or fear. The fear that if I let someone help me, I would owe them something I could not repay. I need to do this myself, I said. Claire nodded, did not push, but I saw disappointment in her eyes. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in the loft and thought about pride, about the difference between accepting help and accepting charity, about whether I was being strong or just being stupid. Grace had accepted help from the community. Ruth, Sam, Frank, all the people who bought her apple butter and vegetables. She had built something, yes, but she had not built it alone. Maybe I did not have to either. The next morning, I found Claire at the farm. She was feeding the chickens. I thought about what you said, I told her, about the money. She looked up. I cannot take it as a gift, but I could take it as a loan with interest. I pay you back when I can, even if it takes years. Claire smiled. Deal. She wrote a check that afternoon, $15,000, handed it to Nathan Pierce along with instructions to bill her directly for anything over that amount. Nathan looked at the check, looked at me, looked at Claire. You two sure about this? He asked. Yes, Claire said before I could answer. With the legal fees covered, I could focus on building the case. Nathan and I spent 2 weeks going through every piece of evidence, every journal entry, every letter, every photograph, building a timeline of Grace's life that showed a woman of sound mind and clear purpose. We found witnesses willing to testify. Ruth, Sam, Frank, Tom Brennan, Dr. Helen Moss, who had been Grace's doctor for 40 years. We prepared for Blake's experts, the doctors who would claim Grace had dementia, the financial analysts who would say the land was too valuable to leave to a stranger. Nathan coached me on how to testify, how to stay calm, how to answer questions without getting defensive, how to tell my story in a way that made sense. The key is honesty, Nathan said. Do not try to be someone you are not. You are a 52-year-old veteran who showed up with nothing and built something. That is your strength. Own it. The night before the court date, I could not sleep. I walked to the creek, sat on the bank, listened to the water running over stones. I thought about Grace. about her sitting in this exact spot, looking at these same stars, wondering if I would ever come. I am here, I thought. I came. I am fighting for this. Please let that be enough. The next morning, Claire drove me to Missoula. We did not talk much, just drove through the mountains as the sun came up. The courthouse was old, stone and brick, heavy doors, the kind of building meant to intimidate. Blake was already there. 3 lawyers, 2 assistants, all of them in suits that cost more than my truck. He looked at me and smiled, not friendly, predatory. "Last chance, Marcus," he said. "Take the settlement. Walk away clean." "No," I said. "Then I will see you inside." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, a judge's bench, a witness stand, rows of seats for spectators. Ruth was there. Sam, Frank, Tom, Dr. Moss, a dozen people from Willow Creek who had taken the day off to support me. Claire sat in the front row. When I looked at her, she nodded. "You can do this." The judge came in. Patricia Donovan, early 60s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense expression. She called the court to order. Blake's lawyer stood up first. Michelle Crane, expensive suit, perfect hair, voice like cut glass. She laid out Blake's case. Grace Webb had shown signs of mental decline in her final years. Confusion, memory loss, fixation on a grandson she had never met. The will was written during this period of decline and therefore invalid. She called her first witness, a neurologist named Dr. Raymond Cross. He testified that based on medical records, Grace showed clear signs of dementia, that leaving her entire estate to a stranger was evidence of impaired judgment. Nathan cross-examined, asked Dr. Cross if he had ever met Grace. He had not. Asked if he had examined her personally. He had not. Asked if his entire opinion was based on second-hand records provided by Blake's team. Dr. Cross admitted it was. Blake's team called 2 more witnesses. Both said the same thing. Grace was declining. The will was suspect. Then Nathan called our witnesses. Dr. Helen Moss testified first. She had treated Grace for 40 years, had seen her regularly until 2 weeks before her death. Grace was sharp, clear, made her own medical decisions, showed no signs of dementia or confusion. Ruth testified next, talked about 40 years of Friday morning breakfast, about Grace's clear memory, about how she talked about Marcus with perfect clarity. Sam testified, talked about Grace lending him money in 1998, about her sound judgment, about her kindness and generosity. Then Nathan called me. I walked to the witness stand, raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth. Nathan asked me to tell my story. I did. About losing my job, about my mother hiding Grace from me, about the letters, about finding the farm, about the emergency money, about learning to farm, about the winter that almost killed me. I showed the court my hands, the scars from frostbite, the fingers that did not work right anymore. I almost died on that land, I said, but I did not, because Grace taught me to fight, not in person, but through her journals, through her faith, through the community she built. I am not here because I deserve this farm. I am here because Grace believed I would come, and she was right. Michelle cross-examined, tried to rattle me, asked about Kevin Brandt, about my PTSD, about my drinking, about my failures. I answered honestly, did not hide, did not make excuses. Yes, I have PTSD. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I have failed people, but I am still here, still fighting. That has to count for something. When I stepped down, I looked at the jury, could not read their faces. The trial lasted 3 days. Both sides rested. The judge took a recess to consider. We waited in the hallway. Claire held my hand, did not let go. After 2 hours, the judge called us back. She read her decision from the bench. The will was valid. Grace had been of sound mind. The property belonged to Marcus Webb. Blake's case was dismissed. I sat there, could not breathe, could not process what I had just heard. Then Claire squeezed my hand and I realized I had won. The farm was mine. Really, truly, legally mine. We walked out of the courthouse into September sunshine. Ruth hugged me. Sam clapped my shoulder. Frank shook my hand. Blake walked past without looking at me, got in his Mercedes, drove away. I never saw him again. That night, back at the farm, I stood on the burned foundation and looked at the land Grace had left me. 80 acres of Montana soil, a barn that was standing stronger after the repairs, a garden producing food, an orchard that had given me apple butter, chickens laying eggs, a creek running clear, and Claire beside me. "What are you thinking?" she asked. I am thinking I need to build a house, I said, right here where Grace's house stood. Something small but solid. A place that will last. That sounds good, Claire said. Will you help me? She smiled. Yes. We built the house that fall. Me and Claire and Sam and Frank and a dozen volunteers from Willow Creek. It took 6 weeks. We worked every day. Framed walls, raised a roof, installed windows and doors. The house was small, 900 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen with windows facing east, a porch facing west. But it was mine. Grace would have been proud. On the day we moved in, I found a letter I had not read yet, one of the ones Grace had written, dated September 2022, 2 years before she died. Marcus, wherever you are, I hope you are happy. I hope you have found peace. I hope you know that someone loves you. This farm will be yours someday, when you are ready, when you need it. And I hope it gives you what it gave me, a place to heal, a place to grow, a place to call home. With all my love, Grace. I sat on the porch of my new house, held the letter, watched the sun set over the mountains. I am home, I thought. Finally home. The first week of January 2025, after my hands healed enough to work again, I went back to reading Grace's journals. The frostbite had left me with 3 fingers on my left hand that would not bend right. The doctor said the nerve damage was permanent. I would never grip things the way I used to. Would never do fine work that required precision. The scars were dark, almost black at the tips, a permanent reminder of the night I almost died. But I could still turn pages. I found entries I had not read before. From 1985, the year William died, the year Margaret left and never came back. April 20th, 1985. Margaret came to the funeral, stood on the opposite side of William's grave from me, would not look at me, would not speak. After they lowered the casket, she walked up and said 6 words. This is your fault. You killed him. Then she left. Drove away in a car I had never seen with a man I had never met. My daughter, the child I raised, the girl I loved more than my own life. She looked at me with such hatred, such certainty that I was responsible for her father's death. And I did not know what to say, because part of me wondered if she was right, if I had pushed William too hard, if I had loved this farm more than I loved him, if I was somehow responsible for the drinking, for his death, for all of it. I stood at his grave alone, and I have been alone ever since. The entry broke off there. The next page was stained, water damage, or tears that had fallen 40 years ago and dried into the paper. I kept reading, page after page of Grace processing her grief, her guilt, her confusion about what she had done wrong, about why Margaret blamed her, about whether she deserved that blame. April 25th, 1985. I have been thinking about what Margaret said, about whether I killed William. I went to Dr. Moss today, asked her straight, did I cause his drinking? Did I push him too hard? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Grace, William had depression, clinical depression. He drank to numb pain that had nothing to do with you. You begged him to get help. You begged him to see a doctor, to talk to someone. He refused. That is not your fault. But Margaret will never believe that. She needs someone to blame. And I am easier to blame than a disease she cannot see. So she will hate me. And there is nothing I can do to change it. I closed the journal, set it down on the kitchen table Claire and I had built from barnwood. Grace had carried that guilt for 40 years, had wondered every single day if she really was responsible for William's death, for Margaret's pain, for the destruction of her family. And she had kept loving anyway, kept writing letters to a grandson she would never meet, kept hoping, kept believing. That took a kind of strength I was only beginning to understand. My phone rang. Nathan Pierce. We need to talk about trial strategy, he said. Blake's team just filed their final witness list. There is a surprise. I drove to Missoula that afternoon. The roads were icy. January in Montana meant black ice and white knuckles. But I made it. Nathan's office was warm, too warm. He had the heat cranked up, coffee brewing, files spread across every surface. He pushed a document across his desk toward me. I looked at the witness list, saw the names. Dr. Raymond Cross, Michelle Crane, Ryan Foster, the private investigator. Then I saw the last name, Margaret Webb Mitchell. My mother. Blake flew her in from Phoenix, Nathan said quietly. She agreed to testify that Grace was mentally incompetent, that she was delusional about you, that the will is invalid. I stared at the paper, could not process what I was reading, could not make the words make sense. My mother is testifying against me? Yes, Blake is paying all her expenses, hotel, airfare, meals, and he is compensating her. We do not know how much yet, but she is being paid to destroy your case. She hates me that much? Nathan leaned back in his chair, looked at me with something that might have been pity. I do not think she hates you, Marcus. I think she hates Grace, and you are just collateral damage. You are Grace's grandson, Grace's heir, Grace's second chance, everything Margaret refused to be. So destroying you is a way of destroying Grace, even though Grace is already dead. I sat there, tried to breathe, tried to think. What do we do? I finally asked. We prepare. We anticipate what she will say. We build a counter-narrative, and we make sure the jury understands that this is not about you. It is about 40 years of unresolved family trauma, about a daughter who could not forgive her mother, about pain that turned into poison. We spent 3 hours that day going through strategy. Nathan had already deposed Margaret by phone. He knew what she would say, that Grace was confused, delusional, obsessed with a grandson who did not want her, that leaving everything to me was evidence of mental decline. She will paint you as an opportunist, Nathan said. Someone who showed up after Grace died. Someone who never cared about her when she was alive. Someone who just wants money. That is not true. I know, but it will sound true, especially coming from your own mother. The jury will wonder, if your own mother does not believe in you, why should we? So how do we fight it? With Grace's journals, with her letters, with testimony from people who knew her, who saw her mental clarity, who witnessed her love for you. We show that Margaret is wrong, or lying, or both. I nodded, but I felt sick. My own mother, testifying against me, taking money from Blake to destroy the one good thing I had built. That night I could not sleep. I lay in bed next to Claire and stared at the ceiling. Thought about family, about blood, about the difference between the people who birthed you and the people who actually loved you. Margaret had given birth to me, had raised me for 18 years, had fed me and clothed me and taken me to baseball practice and sat with me in the emergency room when I broke my arm at age 9. But she had also hidden Grace from me, had returned 600 letters unopened, had poisoned me against my grandmother without me even knowing there was poison. I thought about all the times growing up when I felt alone, when I thought nobody in the world cared whether I lived or died, times when I was deployed in Afghanistan and wondered if anyone back home was thinking about me, if anyone would cry if I did not come back. Grace had been thinking about me every single day, writing letters, saving money, $200 a year for 52 years, hoping, believing, waiting. And Margaret had made sure I never knew. The betrayal felt worse than anything Sarah had done, worse than Emily's silence, because this was my mother, the person who was supposed to protect me, the person who was supposed to love me unconditionally. And she had stolen something from me I could never get back. Time with Grace, with my grandmother, with the one person who had loved me before I even knew how to love myself. Now she was going to stand in a courtroom and tell a judge I did not deserve this farm, did not deserve Grace's love, did not deserve a second chance. I got up, could not lie still anymore, walked outside into the January cold. The stars were out, thousands of them, the same stars Grace had looked at, the same sky she had stood under while writing letters that would never reach me. She had not given up, had not stopped loving me, had not let Margaret's cruelty make her bitter or angry or hopeless. She had just kept believing. I thought about the blizzard, about lying in the snow with my core temperature dropping, frostbite burning through my fingers, about how easy it would have been to stay down, to let the cold take me, to give up. But I had gotten up, for Grace, and I was going to keep getting up, keep fighting, keep proving that her faith in me was not misplaced. I was not going to let Margaret take this from me, not without a fight. The next morning, Ruth called me. I heard about Margaret, she said. The whole town knows. Blake made sure of it. My stomach dropped. How? He gave an interview to the Willow Creek Gazette, front page. Said you manipulated a senile old woman. Said your own mother is coming forward to expose the truth about Grace's mental state. Said the community should know who you really are before the trial. Can I see it? Come to the diner. I drove into town. The Gazette was sitting on every table. A weekly paper, 4 pages, usually nobody paid much attention to it. But this week, the front page had a headline in bold type. Family contest over Webb estate. Deceased woman's daughter claims grandson exploited dying grandmother. The article quoted Blake extensively. Quoted Margaret even more. Said Grace had been showing signs of dementia for years. Said she talked about Marcus like he was a child even though he was in his 50s. Said she was obsessed, delusional, not in her right mind. The article made me sound like a con artist, like someone who had taken advantage of a confused old woman, like a predator. I set down the paper. My hands were shaking. How bad is this? I asked Ruth. She did not sugarcoat it. Bad. People are talking. Some believe Blake. Some think you really did take advantage. Yesterday at church, two people asked me if it was true you never knew Grace. If the whole inheritance was a scam. What did you say? I told them the truth, that Grace talked about you for 40 years, that she showed me your pictures, your report cards, that she kept every letter she tried to send you. All 600 of them returned unopened. But Marcus, some people do not want the truth. They want drama, scandal, something to gossip about, and Blake is giving them exactly that. I looked around the dinner, saw people I recognized from the farmer's market, from town. They looked at me and looked away. Conversation stopped when I walked past tables. Eyes followed me with suspicion. I had been welcomed here because I was Grace's grandson, because people remembered her kindness, because they wanted to honor her memory by helping me. Now that welcome was cracking, and I could feel the foundation shifting beneath my feet. Ruth poured me coffee, black, strong. You know what Grace used to say? Ruth asked. She said, people will believe what they want to believe. You cannot control that. All you can control is whether you keep showing up, whether you keep doing the work, whether you keep being the person you want to be, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. I do not know if I can do that. Yes, you can, because Grace did it for 60 years. Every time someone said she was crazy for writing letters to a grandson who never wrote back. Every time someone told her to give up, to sell the farm, to move on. She kept showing up. She kept doing the work. You have that same stubbornness in you. I have seen it. I wanted to believe her, but doubt was a heavy weight. That afternoon, my truck would not start. Dead battery. The cold had finally killed it. I had to walk into town to buy a new one. 2 miles through January cold gave me time to think, to notice things. A woman I had sold eggs to for 6 months crossed the street when she saw me coming, pretended to look in a store window until I passed. A man I recognized from church walked right past me without making eye contact, like I was invisible. At the post office, the clerk who usually asked about the chickens just handed me my mail and said nothing, would not meet my eyes. At Frank's hardware store, the transaction was cold, professional. He sold me the battery at cost, but did not make conversation. Did not ask how I was doing, just rang me up and handed me the receipt. Frank, I said, the article Blake planted, it is not true. I never knew Grace existed until after she died. My mother kept her from me my whole life. All those letters Grace wrote, all 600 of them. My mother sent them back. I never saw a single one. Frank looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I believe you, Marcus, but you need to understand something. Blake has money, he has lawyers, he has a newspaper willing to print whatever he says. And people in small towns, we talk, we gossip. Sometimes we believe things we should not believe, not because we are bad people, but because doubt is easier than faith. So what do? You keep showing up. You keep working. You keep being Grace's grandson. Eventually, people will remember who Grace was, and they will see who you are. Truth has a way of winning. It just takes time, and it hurts like hell while you are waiting. On the walk back, carrying the battery, I passed 5 more people I knew. 3 crossed the street. 1 nodded but did not stop. 1, an old woman who had bought my apple butter, stopped and looked me right in the eye. I do not believe what they are saying about you, she said. Grace was my friend for 50 years. She was not crazy, and she loved you. I saw the pictures she kept. I heard the stories she told. You keep fighting, young man. Grace would want you to fight. Thank you, I managed. Do not thank me. Just do not let them take what is yours. That land is yours. Grace made sure of it. Now you make sure everyone else knows it too. She walked away, left me standing on the sidewalk with a car battery and tears in my eyes. By the time I got home, I understood what Blake was doing. He was not just fighting me in court. He was fighting me everywhere, turning the community against me, isolating me, making sure that even if I won the legal battle, I would lose everything else. My reputation, my welcome, my place here. It was smart, cruel, effective, and it was working. Claire found me in the barn that evening. I was supposed to be fixing the chicken coop. Instead, I was sitting on a hay bale, staring at nothing. Ruth called, Claire said, told me about the article, about what is happening in town. I did not say anything. She sat down next to me, did not touch me, just sat. I have an idea, she said finally, a fundraiser at the diner to help with legal costs, to show the community that people still believe in you. Blake will use it against me. Say I am begging for money, say I am playing the victim. Let him. The truth is you need help, and people want to give it. Grace helped this town for 60 years. Now they can help you, but you have to let them. You have to stop trying to do everything alone. I looked at her. Why are you still here? Blake is going to destroy me. You could leave. Go back to Denver. Find someone whose life is not falling apart. Because I do not want someone whose life is perfect. I want you, broken pieces and all, and I am not leaving. We fight this together, or we do not fight at all. I wanted to say no, wanted to handle this myself, but I was learning that pride was just fear wearing a different mask. Okay, I said, set up the fundraiser. Ruth organized it for the following Saturday. She put up flyers around town, posted on the community Facebook page, called everyone she knew, told them Grace's grandson needed help, told them to come if they believed in second chances. I did not know what to expect. Saturday came. I showed up at the diner at 6 in the evening, nervous, afraid, half convinced nobody would come. The place was packed, every table full, people standing along the walls, more outside waiting to get in. Over 100 people, maybe more. Ruth had set up a donation jar on the counter, a simple mason jar with a handwritten sign. Help Marcus fight for Grace's land. It was already half full of cash. I stood in the doorway, overwhelmed, unable to move. Sam walked up, put his hand on my shoulder, his grip solid, real. Grace helped this town for 60 years, he said loud enough for people to hear. Lent money when banks would not. Gave food when people were hungry. Paid medical bills, fixed trucks, babysat kids. Never asked for anything back. Just said to pay it forward when you could. Well, now we can. Marcus is Grace's grandson. Blake Hartley can say whatever he wants. We know the truth. We knew Grace, and we know she loved this boy. That is enough for me. The room erupted in applause. People came up one by one, handed me cash, tens and 20s and sometimes 50s and hundreds. An old woman gave me $200 bills and said Grace had paid for her groceries for 6 months when her husband was dying. Told her to pay it forward. A middle-aged man gave me $500. Said his father owed Grace a debt he never got to repay. Said this was his way of settling accounts. Tom Brennan stood up and gave a speech, his voice shaking with emotion. I knew Grace Webb for 45 years, he said. She was the kindest person I ever met. When my farm was failing, she showed up with food, with supplies, with hope. She never gave up on me, and I am not giving up on her grandson. I do not care what Blake Hartley says. I do not care what some newspaper article says. I do not care what Margaret Mitchell says. I know who Grace loved, and she loved Marcus. That is good enough for me. More applause, louder this time. By the end of the night, they had raised $8,200. I stood at the counter, looked at the money, at the people who had given it. Some of them probably could not afford it, but they gave anyway. Not for me, for Grace, because of what she had meant to them. I tried to speak, to thank them, but the words stuck in my throat. Ruth saved me, put her arm around my shoulders. Marcus says thank you, she said, and so does Grace. Wherever she is smiling, because she knew this town would show up. She knew her faith was not wasted. She knew love always wins. It just takes time. That night, back at the farm, Claire and I sat on the porch despite the cold, bundled in blankets, watching stars appear. $8,000, I said. They gave $8,000. They gave more than money. They gave you their belief, their trust. That is worth more than any amount of cash. I do not know how to repay them. You do not repay faith. You honor it by winning, by proving them right, by showing Blake and Margaret and everyone else that Grace was not crazy, that her love was real, that you deserved it. February came. Nathan and I prepared for trial like soldiers preparing for war. We went through every piece of evidence, every journal entry, every letter, building a timeline that showed Grace was lucid and competent right up until her death. We interviewed witnesses, prepared them to testify, made sure their stories were clear and consistent. Ruth, Sam, Frank, Tom, Dr. Moss. 12 people willing to stand up in court and vouch for Grace's mental state, for her love for me, for the validity of her will. Nathan coached me for hours on how to handle cross-examination, how to stay calm when Michelle Crane tried to rattle me, how to answer questions without getting defensive or angry. She is going to bring up Kevin Brandt, Nathan said. Your firing, your PTSD, your drinking, your divorce, Emily's estrangement, everything she can use to paint you as unstable, as someone who takes advantage of people, as someone who should not be trusted with Grace's legacy. I know. And she is going to ask about your mother, about why your own mother is testifying against you, about what that says about you as a person. What do I say? The truth, that your mother has been angry at Grace for 40 years, that she blamed Grace for her father's death even though it was not Grace's fault, that she kept you from Grace your whole life because she could not forgive, that she is here because Blake is paying her, not because she cares about truth. The jury needs to see that this is not about you, it is about her, about unresolved trauma, about pain that never healed. I nodded, but I did not know if I could actually do it, if I could sit in a courtroom and tell strangers that my own mother hated me, that she had always hated me, that I was just collateral damage in a war that started before I was born. 2 weeks before trial, Blake's team released more documents, medical records, allegedly from Grace's final doctor visits, showing missed appointments, confusion, memory loss, signs of progressive dementia. Nathan looked at them and his face went white. These are fake, he said. How do you know? Because I already have Grace's real medical records from Dr. Moss, and they show nothing like this. These documents are forgeries, someone fabricated them. Can we prove it? Maybe. Dr. Moss will testify. She has the originals. But we need to figure out where these fake ones came from. Who made them? Who is willing to commit fraud for Blake? It took us 3 days to trace the documents back to their source. Donald Reed, a clerk in the county medical records office, a man with gambling debts and a willingness to do anything for money. Nathan filed an emergency motion, demanded Reed be deposed under oath, asked him point blank where he got the documents. Reed crumbled under questioning, admitted that Blake's team had approached him, offered him $10,000 to alter Grace Webb's medical records, to add notes about confusion and memory loss that never existed, to create evidence of dementia. Nathan immediately filed a motion to dismiss the case based on fraud, but Judge Donovan denied it, said the forged records would be excluded from evidence, said Reed's actions would be reported to law enforcement for criminal investigation, but said the trial would proceed on the merits of Blake's other claims. Blake had been caught cheating, and it did not even slow him down. The trial was set for March 15th. The morning arrived cold and clear. I woke before dawn, had not slept more than an hour, could not eat, could not think, just dressed in the only suit I owned and drove to Missoula with Claire. The courthouse was exactly as I remembered. Stone and brick, heavy doors, marble floors that echoed with footsteps, a building designed to intimidate, to remind you that justice was bigger than you, more powerful than you, indifferent to your suffering. Blake was already there. 3 lawyers, 2 paralegals, all of them looking confident, expensive suits, designer watches, the casual arrogance of people who always won. And standing next to Blake, looking smaller than I remembered, was my mother. I had not seen Margaret in person for 4 years, not since the Thanksgiving before Sarah and I divorced. She looked older, grayer, thinner. She wore a dark blue dress suit that probably cost more than my truck. Low heels, hairstyle professionally, makeup carefully applied. She looked like someone playing a role, someone pretending to be strong while everything inside was crumbling. When she saw me, something flickered in her eyes, not love, not even recognition really, just acknowledgement that I existed, that we were about to do something that could not be undone. I wanted to walk up to her, to ask why. Why was she doing this? Why did she hate Grace so much? Why did she hate me? But Claire held my hand and pulled me toward our side of the courtroom. Ruth was there. Sam, Frank, Tom, Dr. Moss, Nathan Pierce, a dozen people from Willow Creek who had taken the day off work to support me, who believed in me when half the town did not. I sat down, tried to breathe, tried to remember everything Nathan had taught me. Judge Patricia Donovan entered. Everyone stood. She called court to order, her voice firm. professional. She had done this 1,000 times. Michelle Crane stood up first. Blake's lead attorney. Mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. She laid out their case with surgical precision. Grace Webb had shown signs of mental decline in her final years. She had become fixated on a grandson she had never met. Her decision to leave 80 acres of valuable land to a complete stranger showed impaired judgment. The will should be invalidated. The property should pass to Grace's surviving family through the next of kin. She called her first witness, Margaret Webb Mitchell. My mother walked to the stand, raised her right hand, swore to tell the truth, her voice steady, like she had practiced this, like she had prepared it every word. Michelle smiled at her, warm, friendly, two women united against injustice. Mrs. Mitchell, can you tell us about your relationship with your mother, Grace Webb? Margaret's voice was clear, measured. She had rehearsed this. We were estranged. After my father died when I was 12, she made it clear she did not want me around. She was more interested in that farm than in her own daughter. I moved to Phoenix to live with my aunt. I never came back. Lies. I knew from Grace's journals it was lies. But Margaret said them like gospel truth, like facts no one could dispute. Did Grace ever try to contact you after you left? She sent letters, birthday cards, Christmas cards. I returned them all. She had made her choice. The farm was more important to her than her family. I was not going to pretend that was acceptable. Did Grace ever meet your son, Marcus? Margaret looked right at me when she answered, her eyes hard, cold. No, I made sure of that. I did not want him exposed to her instability, her obsession with that farm, her delusions. I wanted him to have a normal childhood, free from her craziness. The word crazy hit like a physical blow. Michelle continued, can you describe those delusions? She lived alone on that farm for 40 years, talking to herself, writing letters to people who did not exist or who had made it very clear they did not want contact. She became obsessed with Marcus, sent him letters every month even though he never wrote back, never acknowledged her, never cared. She talked about him like he was still a child even though he was in his 50s, called him her grandson like that meant something when they had never met. I felt Claire's hand tighten on mine under the table. Mrs. Mitchell, based on your observations of your mother in her final years, did she seem capable of making sound financial and legal decisions? No, she was fixated on a fantasy, on a grandson who did not want her, who had never reached out, who had never tried to find her even though he was an adult. And she left him everything. That is not sound judgment. That is desperation, or dementia, or both. She looked at me again, and this time I saw something deeper in her eyes. Not hatred, something more complicated. Pain, maybe, or guilt dressed up as righteousness. Mrs. Mitchell, why are you here today? Margaret took a breath, like she was about to say something important, something she had been practicing for weeks. Because I do not want my mother's memory destroyed by someone who was using her. Marcus showed up after she died. Convenient timing. He wants her land because it is worth money. He does not want a relationship. He never tried to have one when she was alive. He is taking advantage of a dead woman who cannot defend herself, and I will not let that happen. The words hung in the courtroom, heavy, damning. Michelle let them sit. Let the jury absorb them. Let them sink in deep. Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell, Michelle said. No further questions. Nathan stood up for cross-examination. He did not look angry, just profoundly sad, like he was about to break something that could never be fixed. Mrs. Mitchell, you testified that Grace sent you away when you were 12. Is that accurate? Yes. Nathan pulled out a journal, Grace's handwriting on the worn leather cover. This is your mother's journal from 1967. May I read an entry dated June 3rd, the day of your 8th grade graduation? Judge Donovan nodded. Nathan read, his voice steady and clear. Margaret is graduating 8th grade tomorrow. I am so proud. I asked her if she would consider staying on the farm for high school. Told her we could make it work. She could help with morning chores, take the bus to school in Willow Creek, come home in the evenings. We would have dinner together. She could have friends over. It would not be perfect, but we would be together. She said no. Said she wants to live with Aunt Helen in Phoenix. Said the farm is boring. Said there is nothing for her here. I begged her to reconsider. Got down on my knees and begged. Told her I would miss her every single day, that I need her, that I love her more than anything in this world. She looked at me and said, "You do not need me, you have the farm. That is all you have ever needed. Then she went to her room and started packing. I sat on the porch and cried until I could not breathe. My daughter is leaving by choice, and I cannot stop her, because she has decided I do not love her, and nothing I say will change her mind. Nathan set down the journal, looked at Margaret. Does that sound like a mother who sent you away or a daughter who chose to leave? Margaret's jaw tightened. A muscle twitched in her cheek. She made my life unbearable. Of course I left. How did she make it unbearable, Mrs. Mitchell? Be specific. She cared more about that farm than about me. Did she say that? She did not have to say it. I saw it every day. What did you see? Her up before dawn, working until dark, always the farm, always work, never time for me. Nathan pulled out another journal. This is from 1966. Your mother writes, Margaret had a school play today. I closed the farm stand 2 hours early, so I would not miss it. She was wonderful. I was so proud I cried. Afterward, I took her for ice cream, just the two of us. She told me about her friends and her teachers and her dreams. I wish every day could be like today. He looked up. Does that sound like a mother who did not make time for you? Margaret said nothing. Nathan continued relentlessly, pulling journal after journal, reading entry after entry, painting a picture of a mother who loved her daughter desperately, who tried everything to keep her, who watched her leave and never stopped trying to bring her back. Then he moved to William, to my grandfather, to the drinking. Mrs. Mitchell, you blame your mother for your father's death. Is that correct? She pushed him too hard, made him work too much. Did she make him drink? She made him miserable. The drinking was just a symptom. Nathan pulled out William's journals, the ones I had found in the barn. These are your father's private journals, written in his own hand. May I read from March 1975? The judge nodded again. Nathan read, I am not enough. The farm does well. We make money. Margaret has everything she needs. Grace never complains. She even begs me to slow down, to rest, to spend more time with her and Margaret. But I cannot, because I feel it every day. The weight of being less than I should be. My father built this place with his hands, made it profitable through the Depression, through droughts and floods and wars. And I am just maintaining it, not growing it, not making it better, just keeping it alive. That is not enough. Grace says it is, but she is wrong. I need to prove I am not weak. I need to prove I am a man. So I work until I cannot stand, and I drink until I cannot feel, and I know it is killing me. But I do not know how to stop. Nathan set down the journal. Your father was in pain, Mrs. Mitchell. Deep psychological pain. He pushed himself, he drank, not because of your mother, because of demons inside himself, demons Grace tried to help him fight, but he would not let her. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. Nathan continued, more journals, more letters, 40 years of Grace trying to reach Margaret, trying to explain, trying to apologize for things that were not her fault. He made Margaret read some of them out loud, her mother's handwriting, her mother's words, her mother's love pouring off the page even as Margaret sent them back unopened. By the time Nathan was done, Margaret was crying openly, makeup running, hands shaking. Did Grace ever stop trying to contact you? Nathan asked quietly. No, Margaret whispered. Did she ever stop loving you? Margaret could not finish. You know she loved you. You have read these letters now. You know she never gave up, never stopped hoping, never stopped trying for 40 years. That is not obsession, Mrs. Mitchell. That is love. The kind of love that does not give up even when it should. The kind of love that keeps hoping even when hope is foolish. Your mother loved you, and she loved Marcus. And nothing you say here today will change that. Nathan pulled out one more document. Mrs. Mitchell, Blake Hartley is compensating you for your testimony today. Is that correct? Margaret nodded, wiped her eyes. How much is he paying you? Margaret hesitated, looked at Blake. He gave her a small nod. Permission. $5,000, she said quietly. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers. The judge had to call for order. Nathan waited for silence. Then he asked one more question, his voice gentle now, almost kind. Mrs. Mitchell, do you love your son? Margaret looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years, her eyes red, her face wet with tears. I do not know how to love anyone, she said, voice breaking. My mother tried to teach me, tried for 40 years, but I would not learn. I was too angry, too hurt, too convinced she was the problem. And now it is too late for her, too late for Marcus, too late for me. No further questions, Nathan said softly. Margaret stepped down, walked past me without looking, sat in her row and put her face in her hands. I wanted to feel vindicated, to feel righteous, to feel like justice had been served. But all I felt was sad. Sad for Grace, sad for Margaret, sad for William, sad for all of us broken people who did not know how to love each other without causing pain. The trial continued. Blake's team called more witnesses, experts who had never met Grace, financial analysts who said the land was too valuable to leave to a stranger. Then it was our turn. Nathan called Dr. Helen Moss first. She testified about treating Grace for 40 years, about seeing her 2 weeks before her death, about her sharp mind and clear judgment and perfect memory. She brought Grace's real medical records, showed there was no dementia, no confusion, no mental decline of any kind. Grace Webb was one of the sharpest people I ever knew, Dr. Moss said. Right up until the end, she knew exactly what she was doing when she wrote that will. And she knew exactly why. Because she loved her grandson and she wanted him to have something solid to build his life on. Nathan called Ruth, Sam, Frank, Tom. Each one told stories about Grace, about her kindness, her clarity, her generosity, about how she talked about Marcus for decades, showed them pictures, kept track of his life through newspaper clippings and whispers from friends. She loved that boy, Ruth testified, even though she never met him. That is not delusion. That is faith. That is hope. That is what real love looks like. Then Nathan called me. I walked to the witness stand on legs that felt like water, raised my right hand, my damaged fingers stiff and awkward, the frostbite scars visible for everyone to see. I swore to tell the truth. Nathan asked me to tell my story. I did. About losing my job, about Kevin Brandt dying while I froze, about my PTSD diagnosis, about Sarah leaving me, about Emily not speaking to me for over a year, about getting the call from Nathan about Grace, about finding the farm burned down, about the 600 letters in a shoebox, about reading messages written to me over 52 years by a woman I had never met, a woman my mother had hidden from me my entire life. I did not know Grace existed, I said. My mother told me she was dead, or crazy, or both. I believed it because I had no reason not to. Children believe their parents. And then I found out the truth. Grace had written me every month for my entire life. 52 years, 600 letters. She never forgot me, never gave up on me. She believed I would come. And I did, 34 years late. But I came. I showed the court my hands, the 3 fingers that would not bend, the scars that would never fade. I almost died on that land last winter, I said, during a blizzard. The temperature was 42 below zero. My heater failed. I had to go outside to get a new propane tank. I got lost in the snow, could not see, could not breathe. I fell. And I thought about giving up, about just lying there and letting the cold take me. But then I thought about Grace, about her waiting 52 years for me to come home, about her believing in me when nobody else did. Not my mother, not my ex-wife, not my daughter. Just Grace, a woman I never met who loved me anyway. And I got up, I fought, I survived. Not because I deserved it, but because she deserved someone to fight for what she built. Someone to prove her faith was not wasted. Nathan asked, "Why do you want this farm, Marcus?" I looked at the jury, 12 strangers who would decide my fate. Because it is the only place I have ever felt like I belonged. Because Grace left it to me. Because I have put everything I have into making it work. Because the community believed in me when I did not believe in myself. And because if I lose it, I lose the only proof I have that someone loved me. That someone thought I was worth waiting for. That I mattered to someone, even when I felt like I did not matter to anyone. My voice broke on those last words. I could not help it. Nathan let the silence sit, let the emotion hang in the air. Then he said quietly, "No further questions." Michelle Crane stood up for cross-examination. She tried, brought up Kevin, brought up the PTSD, brought up the drinking and the divorce and Emily's estrangement, tried to paint me as unstable, as someone who took advantage of people, as someone who should not be trusted. But I answered honestly, did not hide, did not make excuses. Yes, I have PTSD. Yes, I made terrible mistakes. Yes, I hurt people I loved. But I am still here, still trying, still fighting to be better. Grace believed I could do that. She believed I was worth saving, and I am trying every single day to prove her right. When I stepped down, I looked at Margaret. She was still crying, still sitting alone, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. I felt nothing. No anger, no hatred, just emptiness where a mother's love should have been. The trial lasted 2 more days. Both sides rested. Judge Donovan took a weekend to consider her verdict. On Monday morning, we all came back. The courtroom was packed, every seat full, people standing in the back. The town of Willow Creek had shown up to see how this ended. Judge Donovan entered, called the court to order, opened her folder, and read her decision. I have reviewed all the evidence presented, all the testimony, all the medical records, both real and fabricated. I have read Grace Webb's journals, her letters to Marcus, her will. I have listened to people who knew her, who loved her, who saw her mental clarity right up until her death. And I find the following. Grace Webb was of sound mind when she wrote her will in 2022. The evidence overwhelmingly shows a woman who was clear, competent, deliberate in her choices. Mrs. Mitchell's testimony, while emotional, does not change the facts. A daughter's unresolved anger does not invalidate a mother's love, or a mother's right to dispose of her property as she sees fit. Grace wrote letters to her grandson for 52 years. She saved money for him $200 at a time. She prepared a root cellar with emergency funds. She left detailed journals explaining her reasoning. This is not the behavior of someone mentally incompetent. This is the behavior of someone who loved deeply and planned carefully. As for Blake Hartley's attempts to fabricate evidence, I am appalled. The forged medical records submitted by Donald Reed represent a serious crime. I am referring this matter to the district attorney for prosecution. Mr. Hartley, your conduct in this case has been reprehensible. You will pay all court costs and all attorney fees for Mr. Webb as a sanction. The will stands. Marcus Webb is the legal owner of 80 acres in Willow Creek, Montana. This court finds that Grace Webb's wishes were clear and should be honored. Case dismissed. The gavel came down. For a moment, I could not move, could not breathe, could not process what I had just heard. Then Claire grabbed my hand and squeezed so hard it hurt. Ruth was crying, Sam was grinning. Frank clapped. Tom let out a whoop. The courtroom erupted in applause. Blake stood up, did not look at anyone, just walked out with his lawyers. Face red, jaw clenched. I watched him go. Felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction. Just relief that it was over. Margaret sat alone in her row, staring at her hands. I stood up, walked over to her. She looked up. Her eyes were swollen, her makeup ruined. She looked older than I had ever seen her. Mom, I said, do not call me that. I do not deserve it. Why did you do this? Why did you hate her so much? Margaret's face crumpled. Fresh tears. Because she loved that farm more than she loved me. Because my father drank himself to death trying to make it perfect. Because I was 12 years old and alone and I needed someone to blame. And I picked her, and then I spent 40 years proving I was right. 40 years pushing away everyone who loved me, including you. She stood up, picked up her purse. Blake offered me $5,000 to testify. I took it. Not because I needed the money, but because I wanted to hurt her. Wanted to punish her even though she is dead. But all I did was hurt you and hurt myself. She paused, looked at me one more time. Your grandmother loved you more than I ever could, more than I know how to. I hope you know that now. I hope it is enough. Then she walked out. I never saw her again. 6 months later, Nathan called me. Margaret had died. Heart attack. Alone in her Phoenix apartment. She left everything to charity. I was not mentioned in her will. I did not go to the funeral, did not cry, did not feel much of anything. She had been gone from my life long before her heart stopped beating. Outside the courthouse that March day, the Willow Creek community gathered around me, hugged me, congratulated me, told me they never doubted. Sam said what I was thinking. Grace would be proud. You fought for her. You won for her. Now you live for her. That night, back at the farm, I sat on the porch with Claire, watched the Montana stars come out, held the receipt that said the land was mine, really truly mine. No one could take it now. I pulled out my phone, typed a message to Emily. Emily, I won. The farm is mine. Your great-grandmother's faith was not wasted. I wish you could have known her. I wish she could have known you. But maybe someday you can come visit. See what she built. See what I am trying to build. I love you. Dad. I hit send. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Her reply came through. Dad, I am coming. Next weekend. I want to see it. I want to see you. I am so proud. Love, Emily. I stared at the message, read it 3 times. Then I showed Claire. She smiled. Your daughter is coming home. To visit, I corrected. No, home, you will see. We sat on the porch until the stars filled the sky. Grace's stars, my stars now. And I thought about legacy, about what we leave behind when we are gone. Grace had left me land, but more than that, she had left me faith, the belief that I was worth loving, that I was worth waiting for, that I mattered, that faith had saved my life. And now I was going to spend the rest of my days honoring it by building something that would last, by helping people the way she had helped people, by loving without conditions, by never giving up, by proving that her faith in me was not misplaced. I fell asleep that night thinking about her, about the grandmother I never met who loved me anyway, who believed in me for 52 years, who waited until the very end. And I hope she knew that I came home, that I fought for what she built, that her love had won, finally won. Emily arrived on a Friday afternoon in late March 2026, 1 year after the trial, 1 year after I won the farm, 1 year after Margaret testified against me and then disappeared from my life forever. I had spent the entire week preparing for Emily's visit, cleaning the house we had built on Grace's foundation, scrubbing floors that were already clean, washing windows until they sparkled, making sure every surface was perfect. Claire laughed at me, said Emily would not care about dust on a shelf or fingerprints on glass. But I cared. This was my daughter. The first time she would see the life I had built from ashes and hope. The first time she would understand why I stayed when I could have taken Blake's money and left. Why I fought when everyone said I should give up. I wanted her to see that I was not just surviving anymore. I was living. Her car appeared at the end of the dirt road just after 3. A silver Honda Civic. City car. Not built for Montana dirt roads full of rocks and ruts and washouts from spring runoff. I watched it bounce and sway. Could imagine Emily inside, white-knuckling the steering wheel. Probably regretting her decision. Probably wondering what she had gotten herself into. The car stopped in front of the house, engine cut off. Dust settled slowly around the tires like a curtain falling. For a long moment, nothing happened. She just sat there behind the windshield, looking at everything. The barn with its fresh red paint, the garden with neat rows waiting for spring planting, the chicken coop with its 24 hens scratching in the sun, the house we had built with our own hands. Small, green metal roof, porch facing west, solid. The mountains beyond, still white with snow on the peaks, the valley stretching forever. The sky so big, it made everything else seem small. I wondered what she was thinking, whether she saw beauty or just hardship, whether she understood or just felt sorry for me, whether she would stay or make an excuse and leave. Then the door opened and she got out. I had not seen my daughter in person for 16 months. The last time was the birthday party. The shouting, the fear in her eyes, the way she backed away from me like I was dangerous, like I might hurt her. She looked different now, older, thinner, her dark hair longer, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and a gray Colorado sweatshirt and new hiking boots that had probably never touched dirt before today. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes, lines on her face that had not been there before. She looked exactly like I had felt 2 years ago when I first arrived here. Lost, scared, hoping for something without knowing what. We stood there for a moment, 30 feet apart, father and daughter, connected by blood but separated by so much more. Years of hurt, years of silence, years of not knowing how to talk to each other without causing pain. Then Emily smiled, small, uncertain, but real. Hi, Dad. 2 words, simple words, but they broke something open inside me that had been locked tight for over a year. Hi, baby girl. I had not called her that since she was 16, since before Afghanistan, since before I came home broken and angry and unable to explain what war had done to me. She walked toward me. I met her halfway across the yard. We hugged, awkward at first, arms not quite fitting right, bodies remembering how to hold each other after so long apart, then tighter, longer. She pressed her face against my shoulder and I felt her shaking. She smelled like the shampoo she had used since high school, coconut and something floral, like every good memory I had from before the war, like home, like everything I had lost and somehow impossibly found again. When we pulled apart, we were both crying. I am sorry, she said, voice rough with emotion. for cutting you off, for not answering your calls or texts, for being so angry all the time. I did not understand the PTSD, did not want to understand it. I just wanted you to be normal, to be the dad I remembered from before you deployed. You had every right to be angry. I scared you. I was not the father you needed. I was barely a father at all. You were sick. You had PTSD. I should have tried to understand instead of running away. Mom told me you were just drunk, that you were making excuses, that you chose alcohol over us. I believed her because it was easier than admitting my dad was hurting and I did not know how to help. Your mom was doing what she thought was right, protecting you. She was protecting herself. There is a difference. We stood there in the Montana sun, healing something that had been broken for a very long time. Claire came out of the house, stood on the porch with a dish towel in her hands, patient, understanding, giving us the space we needed but making her presence known. Emily looked at her, then back at me, questions in her eyes. "This is Claire," I said. "Claire, this is my daughter, Emily." The two women approached each other carefully. Emily extended her hand. Claire ignored it and pulled her into a hug instead. Emily stiffened for a second, then relaxed, hugged back. "Your father talks about you constantly," Claire said when they separated. "He has shown me every photo he has, told me stories from when you were little, about teaching you to ride a bike, about your first day of school, about the time you won the spelling bee in 5th grade. I feel like I already know you." Emily blushed. "Thank you for taking care of him, for being there when I was not. He did not need taking care of. He needed someone to believe in him. Same as everyone. Your dad is stronger than he thinks, stronger than he knows." I'm starting to see that. We spent that first afternoon walking the property. I showed Emily everything, told her the whole story from the beginning. The barn where I had spent my first night sleeping in the loft, where I found Grace's journals in a wooden crate, where I read about my grandmother's life and realized she had loved me for 52 years without ever meeting me. The root cellar underneath the barn floor, where Grace had left $11,400, $200 saved every year. Emergency money for a grandson she believed would come. The creek where I washed every morning in water so cold it stopped my breath, where I learned that discomfort was not the same as danger, that I could survive things I thought would kill me. The garden beds where Sam had taught me to plant, where I grew my first tomatoes and felt pride for the first time in years, where I learned that broken land could grow food, that worthless soil could produce life. The burned foundation where Grace's house had stood for 60 years before it burned in 2009, where Claire and I had built our house using lumber from the barn and our own hands and help from people who barely knew us but showed up anyway. At the foundation, Emily stopped, put her hand on the concrete, felt the history embedded in stone. "This is where she lived?" Emily asked softly. "For 60 years, she and your great-grandfather William built a house here in 1960, raised your grandmother Margaret here, farmed this land, built a life. When William died in 1985, Grace stayed. When Margaret left and never came back, Grace stayed. When the house burned in 2009, Grace moved into the trailer in the barn and stayed. She never gave up on this place, never walked away, never stopped loving it. And she never stopped loving you." "No, she never did." Emily was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I wish I had known her." "Me too, but we can know her through her journals, through her recipes, through the trees she planted and the land she worked and the community she built. She is still here, in everything, if you know how to look." That evening we ate dinner on the porch. Chicken from our hens roasted with herbs from the garden. Vegetables Claire and I had canned last fall. Bread I had learned to make from Ruth. Simple food, honest food, food that came from this land. Emily looked around at the mountains turning purple in the fading light, at the sky beginning to fill with stars, at the vast quiet emptiness that was not empty at all once you learned to hear it. "It is so quiet here," she said. "In Denver there is always noise. Traffic, sirens, people. I forgot quiet could be this loud." I thought the same thing when I first arrived. The silence was frightening. I did not know what to do with it. But you learn. You start to hear the things underneath the silence. The creek running, the wind in the grass, the chickens settling in for the night, your own thoughts without anything drowning them out. Do you miss the city? I thought about Colorado Springs, about my studio apartment with its bare walls and empty refrigerator, about construction sites and traffic and the constant pressure to be somewhere other than where I was, about always feeling like I was failing, always feeling like I was not enough. No, I said, I do not miss it at all. This is home now. This is where I belong. We sat in comfortable silence. Then Emily said the words I had been hoping to hear since she arrived. Tell me about Grace. Everything. I want to know her. So I told her. About Grace's journals spanning 63 years. About her marriage to William in 1960. About building this farm from nothing. About raising Margaret and watching her leave at age 12. About William's drinking and death. About 40 years alone on this land. About 600 letters written and returned. About believing in me when no one else did. About waiting 52 years for me to come home. About faith that did not require proof. Emily listened, and I could see her understanding, not just Grace, but me. Why I had stayed. Why this mattered so much. Why I would fight anyone who tried to take it. She sounds like an incredible woman, Emily said finally. She was, and she loved you too. Even though she never met you, she kept track through newspaper clippings, your high school graduation, your college acceptance, your law school graduation. She knew everything about you, cared about everything. She left you messages too, in the journals, letters for the great-granddaughter she hoped you would become. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Can I read them? They are yours. Everything of hers is yours too. That night, I gave Emily 3 journals, the ones that mentioned her. Entries from 1996 when she was born, from 2014 when she graduated high school, from 2021 when she passed the bar exam. Grace's handwriting, Grace's love, spanning Emily's entire life, even though they never met. Emily read them in the guest room. I could hear her crying through the walls, could hear her talking to herself, processing, grieving for someone she never knew but who had loved her anyway. The next morning, we drove into Willow Creek. I wanted Emily to meet the people who had saved me, who had given me a chance when I had nothing, who had believed in me when half the town thought I was a fraud. Ruth's diner first. We walked in and Ruth looked up from the coffee pot and her face broke into a smile. You must be Emily. You look just like your father. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. Emily laughed. Is that good or bad? Good. Your father's stubbornness kept him alive last winter when anyone sensible would have frozen to death. Stubbornness is a virtue out here. We ate breakfast. Ruth brought Emily the same meal Grace had ordered every Friday for 40 years. Eggs over easy. Wheat toast. Black coffee. Your great-grandmother sat in that exact booth for 4 decades, Ruth said. Every Friday morning, same meal, same seat. She would drink her coffee and tell me about the farm, about the weather, about you. She talked about you all the time, about what you were doing, what you were accomplishing. She was so proud. I wish she could have told you herself. Me too, Emily whispered. After breakfast, we went to Frank's hardware store. Frank showed Emily the ledger where he had recorded every purchase I made that first year. The chicken wire, the seeds, the tools, all bought on credit when I had no money. Your dad paid back every penny, Frank said. Never missed a payment. That is the kind of man he is. The kind of man Grace knew he would be. Then we drove to Sam's farm. Sam was in his barn working on a tractor. He wiped grease from his hands when he saw us. You must be Emily, he said, and your dad showed me pictures, but you are prettier in person. Emily blushed, smiled. Thank you for teaching him. He says you saved his life. I did not save anything, just showed him what to do. He did the work, all of it. I just made sure he did not give up when things got hard, which they did, often. That afternoon, we drove to the cemetery 5 miles outside town, a small graveyard on a hillside overlooking the valley. Maybe 150 headstones scattered among pine trees. Grace was buried in the back near a massive oak tree that had probably been there 100 years. Her headstone was simple, gray granite, no decorations, just words. Grace Ellen Webb, 1938 to 2024. Beloved grandmother, she waited. Emily knelt in front of the grave, put both hands on the stone, closed her eyes. Hi, Grace, she said softly. I am Emily, your great-granddaughter. I am sorry it took me so long to come here. Sorry you had to wait. Sorry we never got to meet, but I am here now. And I want you to know that your faith in my dad was not wasted. He is doing amazing things with your farm, helping people, building something beautiful. You were right about him. You were right about everything. Thank you for loving him when nobody else would. Thank you for believing in him. I will try to do the same. She stayed there for a long time, crying quietly, talking to a woman she never met but who had loved her anyway. I stood back, gave her space, listened to my daughter making peace with ghosts. When we got back to the farm, Emily asked if she could stay longer than the weekend. I have 3 weeks of vacation saved up, she said, and I want to help, want to learn about the farm, about Grace, about this life you have built, if that is okay. You can stay as long as you want, I said. This is your home too. It always has been. Emily stayed 3 weeks. She learned everything: how to collect eggs without getting pecked by territorial hens, how to water the garden without drowning the seedlings, how to split firewood with an axe that felt too heavy at first but got lighter with practice, how to bake bread that rose perfectly and filled the house with warmth, how to can vegetables for winter, how to fix fences, how to feed chickens, how to do all the small tasks that make a farm run. She read all of Grace's journals, every single page, 12 volumes spanning 63 years, made notes in the margins, asked questions, tried to understand the woman who had shaped her father's life without him even knowing she existed. One evening we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, the sky doing that thing it does in Montana where the colors are so vivid they do not look real. Purple and orange and gold, all bleeding together like paint spilled across canvas. Emily had been quiet all day, thinking about something. Finally, she spoke. "Can you tell me what it is like?" she asked. "The PTSD. I want to understand, really understand, not just know about it, but feel what you feel." I had avoided this conversation for years. With Sarah, with Emily, with everyone. Had hidden behind excuses and silence and anger because talking about it felt like weakness, like admitting I was broken. But Emily deserved the truth. "It is like living in two places at once," I said slowly. "Most of the time I am here, on this farm, in Montana, in 2026, safe. But sometimes a sound or a smell or just a feeling will trigger something, and suddenly I am back in Afghanistan, watching Rodriguez bleed out in the sand, feeling helpless, feeling like I failed him. Those moments are real as this porch, as real as you sitting next to me. My brain cannot tell the difference between then and now, between memory and reality, and I cannot control it, cannot stop it. I can only ride it out and hope it passes quickly." "Is that what happened at my birthday? When you were shouting about the war?" "Yes. Someone asked me about my deployment, about what it was like over there, and something in my brain switched. I was not in your apartment anymore. I was in Helmand Province, watching Rodriguez die, watching Kevin die, seeing all the people I could not save, and I could not stop screaming, could not stop reliving it." Emily was quiet, then she asked, "Does it ever get better?" "It gets manageable. I see a counselor at the VA once a month, phone sessions. It helps. I have learned to recognize the triggers, to use breathing techniques, to ground myself in the present. The episodes are less frequent now, less intense, but they still happen. They probably always will. PTSD is not something you cure. It is something you learn to live with." "I'm sorry I did not understand. Sorry I thought you were just being dramatic or trying to get attention. You were 23 years old. You should not have had to understand. That was not your job. But I am your daughter. Understanding you is exactly my job." We sat in silence as the stars began to appear. One by one, then dozens, then thousands. The Milky Way stretching across the sky like a road made of light. "I am proud of you, Dad," Emily said finally, "for fighting for this place, for not giving up when Blake and Margaret tried to take it, for building something real from nothing, for becoming someone Grace would be proud of." Those words, from my daughter, the daughter I thought I had lost, they meant everything. When Emily left at the end of 3 weeks, we both cried. But this time it was different. Not goodbye forever. Just see you soon. "I will come back," she said. "In August, maybe. Help with the apple harvest. Meet the people who come to the workshop." "Workshop?" "Claire told me about the veterans program you are starting. I think it is incredible. I want to be part of it if you will let me. There will always be room for you here. Always." She hugged me tight. "Thank you, Dad, for not giving up on me, for keeping the door open even when I slammed it shut. You are my daughter. That door will never close." She got in her car, drove away slowly. I watched until the dust settled and the road was empty again. Claire put her arm around me. "She will come back. You know that, right?" I hope so. I know so. She found something here, same as you did, same as I did. She found home. Spring turned to summer. The garden exploded with life. Tomatoes and peppers and squash and beans, climbing poles we built from barnwood. More food than Claire and I could possibly eat. We sold the excess at the farmer's market every Saturday. Made enough money to hire help. Danny, a local kid, 17 years old, skinny, awkward, quiet. His father had died in a farming accident 2 years before. His mother worked 2 jobs to keep the house. Danny needed work, needed purpose, needed a place to learn. I taught him everything Sam had taught me. He learned fast, worked hard, never complained, reminded me of myself at that age. Lost but looking for something solid to hold on to. The chickens multiplied. We hatched chicks in spring, sold some, kept others, ended up with 48 hens and 4 roosters. More eggs than we knew what to do with. We sold 5 dozen a week at market, gave another 2 dozen to Ruth for the diner. The apple trees produced better than expected. Claire and I had pruned them carefully over winter, watered them through spring, protected them from deer with fencing. The effort paid off. 980 pounds of heritage apples. Honeycrisp, Cortland, wealthy. Varieties nobody grew commercially anymore because they required too much work. But the flavor, God, the flavor. We made apple butter using Grace's recipe. Cooked apples low and slow for hours until they broke down into thick, sweet perfection. Added cinnamon and cloves and brown sugar. Filled jar after jar after jar. 240 jars total. We sold them at market for $14 each. People bought them by the case. Drove from 3 counties away. Said it tasted exactly like Grace's, like memory, like home. We made $3,360 from apple butter alone. More than enough for next year's taxes. More than enough for winter supplies. More than enough to start thinking about expansion, about making this farm not just survive, but thrive. In late July, Claire and I were working in the orchard, picking early apples for fresh eating. Hot sun, blue sky, the kind of summer day that makes you believe winter will never come, even though you know it will. I was on a ladder reaching for an apple when I looked down and saw Claire watching me. She had that look on her face, the one that meant she was thinking about something important. "What?" I asked. "Marry me." I almost fell off the ladder. "What?" "You heard me. Marry me. Let us make this official. Build a life together on purpose instead of by accident." I climbed down, stood in front of her. This woman who had appeared in my life when everything was falling apart, who had stayed when she could have left, who had believed in me when I did not believe in myself. "Yes," I said. "Yes? Yes, I will marry you." She smiled, kissed me. We stood in the orchard Grace had planted 60 years ago and decided to build a future together. We got married in October, on the foundation where Grace's house had stood, where her love had lived for 6 decades, where Claire and I had built our own house from barnwood and hope and borrowed tools. Ruth officiated. She had gotten ordained online specifically for this. Wore a dress for the first time in 10 years. Cried through the entire ceremony. 30 people came. Sam and his wife, Frank and his wife, Tom and his wife, Dr. Moss, Nathan Pierce, Danny and his mother, half the town of Willow Creek. People who barely knew us 2 years ago but who had become family. Emily flew in from Denver, stood beside me as my best person, wore a blue dress and cried happy tears, held my hand when I started shaking during the vows. Claire wore a simple white dress. I wore a suit I had bought for the occasion. Not the trial suit, something new, something that represented moving forward instead of looking back. Ruth read from Grace's journal, an entry from her wedding day in 1960. "Today I married William Webb. We stood on this exact ground, promised to love each other, to build something together, to make this land a home. I'm so happy, so hopeful, so ready for whatever comes. This farm will be our legacy, our gift to the future. I hope whoever stands here next feels what I feel now, that this ground is sacred, that love is real, that some things are worth fighting for." When Ruth finished reading, there was not a dry eye in the crowd. We said our vows, simple words we had written ourselves. I promised to love Claire in sickness and health, to stand beside her when things were hard, to build a life with her that honored the people who came before us, to never give up, to always choose hope. She promised the same. We kissed, everyone cheered, And we had a reception under the Montana sky with food Claire and I had grown ourselves. Roasted chicken, fresh bread, vegetables from the garden, apple pie made from Grace's apples. It was perfect, small, honest, real. Everything a wedding should be. That winter was easier than my first. The house was solid with good insulation and a wood stove that actually worked. We had food stored, money saved, chickens that kept laying even in the cold, a rhythm and routine that felt like life instead of just survival. Claire moved her things from the apartment in town, books, clothes, a photo of Nathan, her son who died. We made space for his memory, put his picture on the mantle next to one of Grace, talked about them sometimes. Let them be part of our life even though they were gone. In February, Claire came to me with an idea. What if we started a program, she said, for veterans, teach them homesteading, sustainable living, self-sufficiency, give them the skills you learned, the hope you found, make Grace's legacy bigger than just us. I thought about it, about how lost I had been when I arrived, how the land had saved me, how having something to work for had given me a reason to keep breathing, to keep trying. Grace would love that, I said. We spent the next 6 months planning. Claire used her marketing background to build a website, to reach out to VA hospitals, to veterans organizations, to anyone who might know someone who needed this. I worked with Sam to develop curriculum, basic farming, garden planning, animal husbandry, carpentry, food preservation, water management, all the skills I had learned, all the knowledge Sam had given me. We called it the Grace Webb Veterans Homesteading Program. Free, 1 week intensive, room for 12 participants. We would house them in the barn loft we had converted to guest quarters, feed them food from the farm, teach them skills they could use anywhere, whether they had land or not, whether they stayed in Montana or went back home. We advertised, sent information packets to every VA in the western states, posted on veteran forums, crossed our fingers. 23 people applied. We accepted 12, veterans from 9 different states, ages ranging from 35 to 64. Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia. A few from earlier conflicts, all of them struggling, and all of them looking for something they could not name. They arrived on a Sunday in August 2027, 12 men and women, carrying duffel bags and backpacks and a lifetime of pain they could not put down. I met them in the yard as their cars pulled up one by one, watched them get out, look around, take in the barn and the garden and the mountains and the impossible vastness of Montana sky. They looked exactly the way I had looked 3.5 years ago. Lost, hopeful, scared, wondering if this was a mistake. I introduced myself, told them my story without hiding anything. About Grace, about the inheritance, about arriving with nothing, about the blizzard that almost killed me, about the frostbite scars I still carried, about the trial where my own mother testified against me, about fighting for this land because it was the only thing I had ever fought for that actually mattered, about how this farm had given me a second chance when I did not deserve one. A thin man in his mid-40s raised his hand. His name was Chris. Marines, Afghanistan, nervous energy radiating off him like heat. I need to ask something before we start, he said. Why are you doing this? What do you get out of teaching us? Nobody does something for nothing. It was a fair question, an honest question, the same one I would have asked. My grandmother taught me something I did not understand at first, I said. She taught me that love does not end when someone dies. It just changes form. Grace loved me for 52 years without ever meeting me. Every month she wrote me a letter my mother returned unopened. Every year she saved $200 for my future. Every day she believed I would come home. That love became this farm, this land, this opportunity. She gave me everything. And the only way I can thank her is to pass it forward, to help other people the way she helped me. That is what she would want. That is what I want. We spent that week teaching everything we knew. I showed them how to build a chicken coop from scrap materials, how to make it predator-proof, how to give chickens what they needed, space, food, water, protection, how to collect eggs, how to process old birds humanely. Chris, the Marine who had asked why I was doing this, worked harder than everyone, built his section of the coop with precision. Perfect corners, level beams. When a board did not fit exactly right, he tore it down and started over. I pulled him aside on the second day. Chris, it does not have to be perfect. Chickens do not care if the corners are 90 degrees. I care, he said, voice tight. Everything in my life is wrong. Everything is broken. This one thing needs to be right. I understood that. The need for control, for something to make sense in a world that did not, for something to work the way it was supposed to. Okay, I said, make it perfect. But remember something, even perfect coupes get dirty. Even perfect plans fall apart. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress, one day at a time. He nodded, kept working, but I saw him relax, just a little. Sam came and taught about soil, how to test pH with simple kits, how to amend with compost, how to build raised beds that would last decades, how to rotate crops to keep soil healthy, how to grow food even in small spaces. A woman named Sarah raised her hand, 43 years old, Army nurse, Iraq War. She had a spiral notebook and was writing down everything Sam said. Why so many notes? I asked during a break. Because I am going to do this when I get home, she said. I have 3 acres in Ohio sitting empty. Been there 4 years and I have not planted a single seed because I did not know where to start. Now I know. I am going to grow food, have chickens, build something. That is a good plan. It is the first plan I have had in 12 years that does not involve giving up. Ruth came and taught cooking, how to make bread from scratch, how to preserve vegetables through canning and fermentation, how to make food last through winter without electricity, how to cook on a wood stove, how to make something from nothing. An older man named James stood in Ruth's kitchen and cried while kneading bread dough. 59 years old, Navy SEAL, Vietnam. I have not made anything in 45 years, he said, voice breaking. I destroyed things. That was my job. Blow things up, break things down, end lives. But I never built anything, never created anything. This is the first time since the war I have felt useful. Ruth put her hand on his shoulder, steadied him. You are useful, James. You always were. You just forgot how to see it. Now you are remembering. Frank came and taught basic carpentry, how to use a saw safely, how to square a corner, how to join wood so it would hold, how to build things that lasted. Dr. Moss taught wilderness first aid, how to treat cuts and burns and snake bites, how to recognize hypothermia, how to stabilize someone until help arrived. You live rural, she said. You need to know this. Ambulances are slow, hospitals are far. When something goes wrong, you handle it yourself first. That is just reality. But more than skills, more than knowledge, we taught them something harder to name. That they were not alone. That other people understood what it meant to carry trauma you could not put down. To fight wars that never ended even after you came home. To feel broken in ways nobody could see. That PTSD was not weakness. That freezing was not cowardice. That surviving was enough. That they did not have to be perfect or fixed or healed. They just had to keep trying. On the last night, we gathered around a bonfire in the yard, sat in a circle on stumps and folding chairs Claire had set up. The fire crackling, sparks rising towards stars so thick they looked like snow frozen in the sky. I invited them to share, to talk, to tell their stories if they wanted. No pressure, no judgment, just space. Sarah went first, talked about losing 3 patients in one shift during the Fallujah offensive, about doing CPR for 40 minutes on a 19-year-old Marine who bled out from shrapnel wounds, about washing blood off her hands and going right back to work because that was the job, about carrying that image for 16 years, about nightmares where she saw his face every time she closed her eyes. I thought I was going crazy, she said. Therapy did not help. Medication made me numb but did not stop the nightmares. Nothing helped. Then I came here, met all of you, and I realized I am not crazy. I am just hurt. And hurt things can heal. It just takes time. James talked about Vietnam, about coming home to protesters who spit on him at the airport, about taking off his uniform in a bathroom and throwing it in the trash because he was ashamed to wear it, about spending 45 years angry at everyone, at the government that sent him, at the protesters who blamed him, at himself for surviving when 53,000 Americans did not. I wasted half my life being angry, he said, angry at people who did not understand, angry at a world that forgot, angry at myself for caring. I do not want to waste the other half. I have 4 acres in Tennessee, a small cabin. That is where I am going to practice everything I learned here. grow food, have chickens, build something good, make the second half of my life mean something. Chris talked about being a medic, about watching his squad leader die from an IED blast, about doing everything right and still failing, about the guilt of survival, about feeling like a coward for being the one who lived. I thought if I could just explain it right, people would understand, he said, voice shaking. But there is nothing to explain. He died. I lived. That is the whole story. And I have been punishing myself for 8 years for something I could not control. He looked at me across the fire, eyes wet, reflecting flames. But you froze too. You watched people die. Kevin on that construction site, Rodriguez in Afghanistan, and you are still here, still building, still trying. That gives me hope that maybe I can do the same. Maybe survival is not something to feel guilty about. Maybe it is something to build on. His story was my story. All their stories were my story. Different wars, different details, different ways of breaking, but the same fundamental wound. The belief that we should have done more, been more, saved more. The guilt of surviving. When Chris finished, I spoke. I froze in Afghanistan, I said. Watched my friend Rodriguez bleed out in the sand because I could not move, could not think. Just stood there useless. Then I came home and it happened again. On a construction site in Colorado, watched a man named Kevin die because PTSD took my ability to react. I spent years hating myself for it. Years thinking I was broken beyond repair, worthless, better off dead. I looked around the circle, 12 faces lit by firelight, 12 people who understood exactly what I meant. But this farm taught me something. It taught me that broken things can be fixed, that worthless land can grow food, that the coldest winter ends, that love does not give up even when it should. You are not broken. You are healing. And healing is not weakness. Healing is the hardest work there is. Harder than war. Harder than anything. But you are doing it. Every day you wake up and try, you are doing it. That is enough. That has to be enough. We sat around that fire until the wood burned to embers, until our voices got quiet, until we ran out of words and just sat in silence. The comfortable silence that comes when you do not have to explain yourself. When the people around you already understand. The next morning they packed their cars, exchanged phone numbers and email addresses, promised to stay in touch, promised to send updates about gardens and chickens and the things they were building. Chris came up to me last, shook my hand, his grip firm. Thank you, he said. I came here thinking I was alone in this, thinking nobody could understand what it is like. I leave knowing that is not true, that other people get it, that I am not broken, just healing. You were never alone. You just did not know where to find us. Now you do. Can I come back next year? Help teach? Give back the way you gave to me. This program exists because people paid it forward. Of course you can come back. We would be honored. He got in his car, drove away, left dust hanging in the morning air. Claire and I stood in the yard after they were all gone. The farm quiet again except for chickens and wind and the creek running in the distance. Grace would be proud, Claire said. I hope so. I know so. You are doing exactly what she did. Helping people who need help. Building community. Giving without expecting anything back. That is her legacy, and now it is yours. Ours, I corrected. This is ours. She smiled, took my hand. Yes, ours. That afternoon I drove to the cemetery alone. Had not been there in months. Felt like I needed to talk to Grace, to tell her about the workshop, about Emily, about Claire, about everything that had grown from the seed of faith she planted. I parked, walked to her grave, sat on the ground next to the headstone, put my hand on the granite, felt the warmth from the sun. Hi, Grace, I said out loud. It is Marcus, your grandson. I know it has been a while. Things have been busy, good busy, the kind of busy you would approve of. Claire and I got married. On the foundation where your house stood, Ruth read from your journal, your wedding entry. It was beautiful. You would have loved Claire. She is strong and kind, and she believes in me even when I do not believe in myself. Emily came to visit, stayed 3 weeks, read all your journals, cried over the letters you wrote about her. She wanted me to tell you that she loves you, that she wishes she had known you, that she understands now why you mattered so much to me. We started a program for veterans, taught 12 people last month, homesteading, sustainability, self-sufficiency. But really, we taught them hope, that they are not alone, that they can rebuild, that life after war is possible. They left different than they arrived, lighter somehow. That is because of you, because of what you built here, because of the love you left behind. The farm is doing well. We made apple butter from your recipe. People say it tastes exactly like yours. We sold every jar. The garden produced more food than we could eat. The chickens are multiplying. Everything you planted is still growing. I think about you every day. Wonder what you would say if you could see this. Wonder if you are proud. Wonder if your faith in me was justified. I hope it was. I am trying. That is all I can do. Try every single day to be worthy of the love you gave me, to honor the sacrifice you made, to prove that your wait was not in vain. Thank you, Grace, for everything, for waiting, for believing, for loving me when I did not know how to love myself, for leaving me this land and this community and this chance to build something that matters. I am home, finally home, and I am never leaving. I sat there until the sun started to set, until the shadows grew long and the air turned cold. Then I stood up, put my hand on the headstone one more time, drove back to the farm, to Claire, to the life we were building, to the future Grace had made possible. That evening, Claire and I sat on the porch, our porch, watching the Montana sky turn colors that should not exist. Purple and orange and pink bleeding together. Stars beginning to appear one by one. What are you thinking about? Claire asked. Grace, about how she sat right here for 60 years, watching these same sunsets, waiting for someone who might never come. But you did come, that is what matters. 34 years late, you came when you were ready, when you needed it. That is all she wanted, not perfect timing, just arrival. I thought about that, about timing, about how nothing in my life had happened when I wanted it to, how everything had been delayed and difficult and wrong, until suddenly it was not, until suddenly it was exactly right. Do you think she knew, I asked, that I would come, really knew in her bones? I think she had faith, and faith is different than knowing. Knowing is about certainty, faith is about hope. Grace hoped for 52 years without proof. That is not weakness. That is the strongest thing I can imagine. We sat in silence, held hands, watched the light fade and the stars multiply. A coyote called in the distance. Another answered, the sound echoing across the valley like a conversation between old friends. Sarah sent me an email, Claire said, the army nurse from the workshop. What did she say? She said the week here changed her life, that she went home and started her garden, bought chickens, started going to therapy again. Said she feels useful for the first time in years. Said if she would give us any gift, it would be to tell us we saved her. But she knows we would say we did not. So instead, she just wants to say thank you. I felt something tighten in my chest. Pride, purpose, the knowledge that we had done something that mattered. We should do 2 workshops next year, I said. Spring and fall, reach more people. Can we handle that? We will make it work. Grace did not wait 52 years for me to play it safe. Claire laughed. No, I do not suppose she did. The stars were fully out now. Thousands of them. Millions, maybe. The Milky Way stretching overhead like a river of light flowing through darkness. Grace's stars, I said. Your stars now. Our stars. We sat there until the cold drove us inside. Then we made dinner from food we had grown, read by the fire, went to bed in the house we had built together on the land Grace had loved. And I thought about legacy, about what we leave behind when we die, about how love does not end, it just changes form. Grace had left me 80 acres. But more than that, she had left me faith. The belief that I was worth loving, worth waiting for, worth saving. That faith had given me life. Now I was passing it forward, to Emily, to Claire, to 12 veterans who needed to know they were not broken, to anyone who walked onto this land looking for hope. That was Grace's legacy, and it was mine too now. I fell asleep thinking about her, about the grandmother I never met who loved me anyway, who believed in me when everyone else gave up, who waited 52 years without proof that I would come. I hoped she could see what I had built, what her faith had created, what her love had made possible. I hoped she knew it was not wasted. I hoped she was proud, and somewhere, in whatever place souls go when they leave this world, I believed she was smiling. Because her grandson had come home, finally home, and he was building something that would last. The next morning I woke before dawn. The farm had trained my body to rise with the sun. I could not sleep past 5 anymore, even when I wanted to. I walked outside into the September cold. Autumn coming. The garden would need final harvesting soon. The apples almost ready, the chickens molting, the whole farm preparing for winter. I walked to the barn, up to the loft where I had spent my first desperate nights. Sat in the same spot where I had read Grace's journals by lantern light, where I had cried for a woman I never knew. Pulled out my phone, took a photo of the sunrise, mountains turning gold, valley filled with morning mist, light spilling across land I had fought to keep. Sent it to Emily. Good morning from the farm, the place your great-grandmother loved, the place she left us, the place we will pass to you someday. Come visit soon. We miss you. Love, Dad. 3 dots appeared immediately. She was awake, probably getting ready for work in Denver. Her reply came through. I miss you too, Dad. Coming in 3 weeks. Taking a long weekend. Cannot wait to see the changes. Save me some apple butter. Love you so much. I put the phone away, looked out at the land stretching in every direction. 80 acres of Montana soil, a barn standing strong, a house built on the foundation of love, a garden that fed us, an orchard that sustained us, chickens that gave us life, a creek that ran clear, and a community that had welcomed a broken stranger and helped him become whole. This was home, not because of the land, though the land mattered, not because of the buildings, though they were solid, but because of the love that had built it all. Grace's love, Ruth's love, Sam's love, Claire's love, Emily's love, love that had waited, love that had believed, love that had never given up. I stood up, climbed down from the loft, walked outside into the Montana morning. The day was waiting, work to be done, eggs to collect, a garden to harvest, apples to pick, firewood to split, 100 small tasks that made a farm run. But first I walked to the foundation, stood where Grace's house had been, where she had lived and loved and waited. I put my hand on the ground, felt the earth beneath my palm, still solid, still holding everything Grace had poured into it. Thank you, I said out loud, to Grace, to the land, to whatever force in the universe had brought me here when I needed it most. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for believing. Thank you for loving me when I did not know how to love myself. I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve it. The wind picked up, blew through the apple trees Grace had planted, through the grass she had walked, made a sound like breathing. And for just a moment, I could swear I heard her voice. Not imagination, not wishful thinking, but something real carried on Montana wind. Welcome home, my boy. Welcome home.